Cero dropped that inbox to me and that hit. And that's a nameless hit. That hit doesn't even have a name to it. But that's probably a classic hit. And I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here today on Thursday. And it is November 30th. It might be the last day of November. Do you realize that? It might be the last day of November 2017. I'm too lazy to look at the damn calendar, I think. But I want you to appreciate you guys for being here with me on the follow-up. We got the follow-up this week. I'm going to get right into it because I'm not playing. You know what I'm saying? I'm not playing today. I got my weekend ahead of me. I'm headed to Calgary. Canada, tomorrow on a flight with 3 other comedians. We're going to go to Calgary. We're going to do a show at a place called Cowboys. And I have never been to Calgary. I've been to Canada, and I've had some unique experiences up there. Got some severe food poisoning up there one time and had to lay by a fireplace for a long time and get well. Very Native American experience up there. And sometimes I wonder what happened with the Native Americans that were in Canada. Because you always hear about, how Native Americans got treated here in the U.S. and not well, might I add, if you missed those chapters in school. But the answer is not well there. And then I start thinking, well, how did they get treated over there in Canada? You know, those kind of they call them frostbacks. I think a lot of people up there, and I don't know if that's a racial term or not. I hope it's not. But anyhow, man, thank you guys for joining me. I just got out of some yoga. So I'm feeling my spirit. Kind of living in the ends of my arms and legs. And look, I'll tell you this about yoga, man. I used to be anti-yoga. I'd go in there. People are sweating. You know, you can hear some ladies, they got their hoo-ha's dangling out. You know, some people's in the corner just kind of, laying on the thing with like a little blanket over them. And they freaking tugging out, they freaking petting that whistle, bruh. But then you also have people that are in there that are really getting it done and getting their bones and joints in better condition. And that's the kind of people that I was dealing with in there today, man. It's good, dude. Yoga, I'm starting to get into it. They have that Diamond Dallas Page yoga. I've never done it, but I hear that it's pretty cavalier. But I'm happy, man. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling lively. Might have to go hit that Gray Block Pizza over on Pico Boulevard. Roll up in there, peaceful. Roll up in there and namaste. Let me get that hitter, huh? Let me get that Gray Block Pizza. Fill my mouth. What's inside of your mouth right now? Probably air, maybe gum, maybe your tongue. Imagine, dude, if your tongue was pizza. That's what can happen to you if you go to Gray Block Pizza. So you check it out when you're in Los Angeles, GREYBLOCKPIZZA.com. We're doing the follow-up. I want to get you guys immediately into the call that led to a lot of calls. We had a lot of people hit the hotline, 985-664-9503. We're going to get into, I want to play that call for you right now so you can hear what a lot of the calls were about. Here we go.
Hey, what's up, Theo? My name is Adam, and got a little question for you. Maybe get your thoughts on my wife at about year 2 informed me that watching pornography was akin to cheating.
Year 2. First of all, this dude, that's a wild way to put it, I guess, Adam, year 2. But yeah, so 700 days into the deal, after having the cake and the big party with everyone and friends and love and family, and getting those gifts and getting that money, your wife says that porn is akin to cheating. Let's go.
And so she requested that I stop watching that pornography. And so I did. But what she did for me was she allowed me to start filming us doing the nasty.
That nasty, boy. And you know what's interesting to me, Adam, is that I love how the nickname it is the nasty, It's not that beautiful dance, It used to be called humping. Sometimes they call it humping. If just a woman is just, I guess kind of on her knees and you're just back there behind her, that's humping. but the nasty. And if you ever watch two people have sex, dude, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, not on pornography. Like, on pornography, you're talking to the all-stars, These are the Shaquille O'Neals of fucking on pornography, on sexual, These are, these are your Neil Armstrongs of sex and of, tits and butthole work and all of that, everything they're doing. These are connoisseurs. This is your Salt Bay of sexuality. These people on pornography. Somebody rolling into your bedroom or my bedroom, seeing our hairy derrieres, that hairy boy, seeing our hairy derrieres, or our maybe if I have an ink stain on my leg because a pen broke in my pocket at work and it's been there for 7 months, and I mean, we're not showing off the best case. We're not showing off the best, elements and the best limbs and, and everything. So you're going to be your trade-off. I mean, that's a beautiful trade-off. At least your wife gave you an option. She said, well, if you can't do this, I don't want you doing this, but you're allowed to film you and me being nasty. Let's hear more.
So anyway, the dark arts part of this comes in with me. I kind of want to try something else, and I'm not sure on how she's going to take it, but I kind of want to film her banging somebody else. That may sound weird to some people. It may sound, them jealous types, they wouldn't get into something like that, but I've been thinking about it a lot, man, and, even sometimes when my wife is doing nasty things to me, I kind of, in my head, start thinking like I'm somebody else.
There you go. So he really, in Adam's head, it feels like he is, well, let's see what some of you guys thought, man. Because his wife is saying, I don't want you watching the pornography, that's akin to cheating, but you can film us having sex. And now he wants to bring some other people into the bedroom. He wants to bring, first of all, the number one draft pick is probably going to be a brother. And if you're going to bring somebody going to come in there with a big instrument, you in there with your little synthesizer, and a brother shows up with a big bass drum, maybe that's what you want to see, though. Or if you get, you could get 11 or 9 Asian dudes rolling up on your lady, hanging off of her like one of those bicycles in the Guinness Book of World Records, You might have 11 or 9 Asian dudes, some Viettes or some Laotians, popping off, giving her that, what's it called when they prick your skin with all those needles at one time? I don't know what it's called, man. Needle work, If they knitting, they doing all that knitting, boy, they, those little bitty, crazy hammers. The specific hammers. A lot of Asians, they come with that specific hammer. Almost like they got like they're sewing. They got that sewing machine wiener. But you get 11 of those, boy, you could cause some arrhythmia or something on your old lady. But so that was Adam's call, and you guys got some great calls that came in. So let's pop in one of those right here.
Hi, Theo. This is Ashley. I'm calling from Tampa.
Hey, Ashley. Thank you for calling from Tampa. Tampa, bad zoning down there. A lot of, I got accosted by a gay gangbanger down there one time. Dude tried to get me, honestly, to masturbate and give him my wallet. So that's, it is what it is, but they got some unique zoning down there. Strip club right next to a place where you could get a boat or, get an animal euthanized, all types of stuff, Spanish moss, everything. Let's hear more. Thank you for calling, Ashley.
I saw you for the first time a while back, and I think that was the first time I ever cried at a comedy show. So,
well, I appreciate that. Thank you for the compliment. One dude, one night at a show, he laughed so hard, he came out of the closet. He was just like, I'm gay. And his buddies were like, what the fuck, Gerald? Calm down, bro. Have another beer. Get it together, bucko. Onward.
I've become a big fan. I'm actually calling in response to your is porn cheating question. And my short answer is no. However, I think that it can definitely be a huge issue in a relationship if the person has some sort of addiction, which I think that one of my ex-boyfriends had an addiction. And
yes, I mean, I don't know if one of your ex-boyfriends did have that, but I certainly have been there. You know, that is a bad habit, and it's that's the dark arts, and that's where a lot of the dark arts even started for me, was getting caught up in that, you know, and just feeling around. You know, sometimes I used to blindfold myself and pretend I didn't know where my penis was, and then find my penis and then masturbate. So, you know, just because you got to spice it up, even when you're just masturbating, you got to spice it up, you know. But yeah, for some people, it's a bad habit. So you're saying no, Ashley, and it's nice to hear a woman's voice on this. I'll say that. There's something immediately, you know, takes it to another level when you got a woman talking about sexuality, and that, you know, right here in this conversation, in this, you know, in this vile little cauldron that we've created here to discuss this dirt topic. You know, onward.
it was to the point where he would rather lock himself in the bathroom and jerk off than have sex with me.
Ooh, that's a little Silence of the Lambs, you know? He's in there petting that black sheep and you outside looking for some wool, you know? So, yeah, that's wild. I've never, you know, I mean, honestly, I'll tell you this. I did have times where, man, when I was seeing a gal, I would masturbate. Even when she and I were not having good sex, we were not even having sex at a time, and I would still be pleasuring myself. You know, so at that point, there is something going on because, you know, this was a girl that I loved, you know, that I was in love with, and I don't know why I wouldn't, you know, exercise that sensuality with her, and instead, you know, I'm out, you know, beating that thing like it's a bad schoolboy, you know, like it just failed the third grade. You know, I don't know why I do that, why I did that, or why someone does that. You know, you really got me thinking here now, Ashley. I think some of the reason was just, I almost wonder if some of it was out of a selfishness. Like, if I don't, like, the more I connect with this girl, the more in love, maybe I'll fall more in love, and maybe I'll get my feelings hurt, you know, whereas if I just pleasure myself, then I know I'm in control of everything. I'm in control of the situation. Nobody can hurt me. I don't know. Interesting, though. Let's hear more. Thank you for calling, Ashley.
So I feel like if that's where you're at and he's not willing to admit that it's an issue, then I think that's fair to say that, you know, he should obviously stop. But is it cheating? No.
There you go. It's not cheating, she said, unless it's a bad habit. But you know, I'm assuming his wife must have thought it was a bad habit if she said that, if she told him to shut it down. We got some other great calls that came in. Let's get right into it.
Theo, this is Rico calling from that New Hampshire.
Rico, that Hamp
City.
Hamp.
Calling about the porn cheating. Hadn't considered it until Adam brought it up on the call where his wife called him out, but after thinking about it, I do think porn is cheating. I believe that I have been cheating on my girlfriend. There are times where I will masturbate before seeing her because I don't want to engage in sexual activities with her.
Wow. I mean, this is kind of part of what we were just talking about. Like, let's hear more. I'm interrupting you. Go ahead, Adam. Sorry.
That's cheating. That's cheating with your hand.
Okay, so you're saying that you even feel like that's cheating. That if you're masturbating, you know, you dropping that ounce. You know what I'm saying? You know, you working that water pole and you're keeping that away from your girlfriend, then that is cheating. I mean, that makes sense, you know, in a way like, yeah, I'm keeping this for me. This isn't for you. I mean, that's the same thing cheating is. I'm putting this somewhere else. I'm keeping this from you. I mean, there's definitely, there's some synonymity there. Synonymity. Let's hear more.
Like you said, if it's only a once in a while thing, but if you're doing it instead of giving love to your lady, then yeah, I would consider it cheating.
If you're doing it instead of giving love to your lady. And yeah, I mean, I wish, and a caller hit this on the hotline. They said, well, why don't you have a therapist call in sometime or come in sometime and discuss some of these things with you? And that's something that I hope we'll be able to get into here in the new year. A couple more months here, we're going to try to, maybe even get into a bigger studio where we can have more applicable space for a guest. Those are pipe dreams, but those are real dreams, and some of that support comes from people supporting on Patreon, from our charter sponsors, stuff like that. So, but that would be great to have a real therapist sitting in there, and then we can try to gun down some of these issues, and walk through some of them whenever we're on a day like this, where this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. But if you're keeping it from your lady on purpose, there's something going on there, because why wouldn't you engage in that sex with somebody else? There's also a thing with the man, like once you get close, it's like sometimes whenever you get, like a lot of my buddies they're in relationships, marriages, but they have no sexual attraction to their partner. It's real stuff out there, man. People are really out in these skeet streets and dealing with this stuff. Next caller.
Hey, Theo. This is Josh from Wisconsin.
Oh, and thank you, Rico, for that call. Appreciate it. Josh from Wisconsin. Wisconsin is where they had the making of a murderer, man. And that Brendan Dassey, dude. Come on. Let that boy out. The best he gonna do is maybe get a job raking leaves somewhere. Let that boy out, dude. Hadn't he been through enough? He had adult acne as a child. Let him out. Onward.
Love the podcast, man. I like everything you're doing with the dark arts and being that avenue for us.
Well, I'm just out here in these. I'm just a crossing guard, man. I'm a crossing guard who's jerking off on his lunch break. You know what I'm saying? I'm out here with you in these dark arts, bud. Onward.
Heathens out here. In response to Adam, the caller about the porn, I don't think porn is cheating. I think as long as it's not something you do like on a daily basis and that's the only thing you lust for, I don't think it should be a problem, but I think you can definitely watch too much of it to where, like you said, you lose that desire for your lady, and putting up with all the, normal relationship stuff doesn't seem worth it if you're not after that lust, after that nut.
Yeah, and he here talking, this young man talking about that nut. And that's the thing. Because here's the thing, if you ain't doing pleasure and you ain't, old faithfuling, and you ain't being a human geyser, and you just constantly treating yourself to free orgasms, like you're the only person playing Monopoly and you're just going around the board as many times as you want like a damn cheating dirtball. If you're not doing that, I mean, if you are doing that, then yeah, first of all, you're doing your own thing. So a marriage is where you're supposed to put it together. You're supposed to put them body parts together. And you're supposed to put the love, you're supposed to see a woman in the kitchen and want to, treat her to some of that DNA glue. You know what I'm saying? That maker, that baby maker, And and how semen is not on the periodic table of elements, I will never understand. Salt is on there, sodium chloride, dude. Salt is gonna spruce up a steak, maybe, and some tighten up some broccoli. But you want to start a family, you need semen, dude. Salt ain't gonna get you anything. You throw salt in a woman's vagina, dude, they're gonna get pissed, and that's no children, just anger, and that's the truth. But let's hear a little bit more. But yeah, if you're spraying that, if you're giving that away all the time to whatever, to a screen on your computer, to the sink, to whatever, to the shower drain, then you're not saving that for you. Then that attraction is not going to be there. Your chi is going to be dissolved for your spouse. Let's hear more.
So there's that. Interesting thought here, though. Do you think his lack of watching porn now and not having that avenue to express his sexuality, do you think that led to his desire to share his woman? Also, I couldn't do it. I'm way too jealous for that.
Wow, that's a really interesting thought. So the fact that he couldn't watch porn anymore, but he had been watching a lot of it, now he needs to see porn. I mean, his wife said she was okay with him filming them, But that's like watching the same porn over and over again. Now he want to see somebody else on the screen, you know? Now he don't want to just be at butterthighs.com. He want to go to, silver foxes and silver crotches. You know, he want to go to blacksuperstars.net. You know, he want to see some brothers throwing that javelin with the sneakers on. A couple brothers in New Balance going to town. You know, on Little Red Riding Cock. You know, he wants to see that. You know, he want to see them aerialists. You know, sometimes you can get on some of those websites and have a Chinese man or a Vietnamese fella or, you know, just a small Italian, and they'll come whipping off those aerialist things that they have, the trapeze, and land in a crotch like that and try to do no splash, you know, or no, you know, try not to wake the lady who's sleeping there with her legs open, or whatever the gist is of the pornography. But so this caller's saying that. Do you think that by stopping one, but already being fused with it in his brain, that Adam now still wants to see porn, but the only way he can see it is by making it on his own? Wow, this is almost like a script for like a murder or something. It could be. You know, our psyche is It's like a chef that don't want to go to the grocery sometimes. Our psyche will just use what's in the cupboard. Oh, if I got this already and I got this, and that's why sometimes you have to go to therapy and you have to go to some of these things. You have to talk to people. You have to let it out. You know, you have to let these ghosts out of your soul, you know, out of your soul cave, because if you don't, then the chef and your psyche will just use the same ingredients. It'll repackage them. So now, and look, man, it can make a nastier recipe. Before you're just watching other people have sex on the screen, next thing you know, you spending $2,000 on cameras and lights, and your wife's getting, you know, chirped up by some bad birds that are flying in. You know, people flying in on Southwest to bang your wife. Man, what is going on? You know what movie I watched the other night? It was Horseman on Netflix. And Dennis Quaid is in the movie. And I like Dennis Quaid because I interviewed him one time on our Allegedly podcast. And he brought some tequila to myself and my co-host. And he got in a fight with a parking attendant afterwards downstairs. And I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, I didn't get the statement from the parking attendant, but Dennis Quaid was just kind of TO'd and whatever. Who knows? But I thought it was just pretty cool. And while we were talking, I told him that my favorite Dennis Quaid movie ever was this movie called Frequency. And he told me that his favorite movie he ever did was called Frequency. So I always respected that. But I watched Horseman the other night on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, don't. It's horrible. It's a bad movie. It's about like, I don't know. It's supposed to be about serial killers. It got 4 stars on Netflix, which means nothing. And we have no clue how they give them these stars or whatever. But it was absolutely bad. And the problem is, with a lot of films you go see, they're bad. Murder on the Orient Express. Beautiful looking, nice train. But you know what? I'm not paying $25 to go see a train. You know? Like, I'll go on an actual train. I'll get on Amtrak and see a real murder for probably the same price, but at least I get to travel across the country halfway. And the problem is, with the film industry these days, it's that it's just built in such a way that it stifles creativity. You know, they deliver bad content. You know, there's just a few actors and a few people that keep getting the same jobs over and over again because they've monopolized the industry. You know, there's only 3 or 4 studios that are even making anything. You have to go through Seth Rogen. You have to have The Rock in any movie. You know, these companies know that if they make a movie that costs $100 million and that The Rock is in it, they're going to make $120 million after. So they make $20 million profit, and that's enough for them. They know that they can just use that cookie cutter format every time. But the problem is we get bad content until now. Now there's a new program. It's called Liveetree. Liveetree.com. You can go to it right now. And it's basically a network that's going to allow us, the consumer, to invest in projects, and we will own part of the project. So we get to kind of pick what will be created. Imagine like fantasy football, basically, where you get to put the players in, right? You will help choose the actors. You will help fund the projects, but you will have an ownership. You will have a stake. You will have a share. Imagine that. It's basically like create your own pizza, but it's for film and television. And that's what's going on now. And it's amazing. It's a way that the industry can change. Go to livetree.com. Check out how you can get involved. This is the time to get involved. It's like, say if I told you 5 years ago you can invest in Netflix now. That's what's going on. Livetree.com. You want to check that out, I promise. All right, let's go to our next caller here. This caller is from Huntsville, Alabama, where I was just a few weeks ago, and I appreciate you calling. Here we go.
What's up, Theo? This is Lee calling about if pornography viewing is cheating or not.
Thank you for calling, young bucko. Let's hear more of your words.
I think you said it best, man. If it's a habit that you're setting aside time for and on a regular basis, then yeah, I believe it's cheating. I've been with my wife for about 5 years, and anytime I got into the habit of watching porn, it always took the excitement of having sex with my wife away.
100%. You know, if you got that gusto headed towards your lady, and you sprang in that gusto out in the yard, or pulling up there by the Winn-Dixie and masturbating or whatever, then of course, you're not going to bring that same gusto into the household. You know, and I feel you, man, you know, and it's wild out there. If you have it in your planner, first of all, if you have it in your planner, you know, breakfast, gym, jerk off, you know, that kind of stuff, then that's definitely not good. So I feel you there. Let's hear some more. Thank you for calling.
And I wonder if Adam's fantasy of watching his wife getting nailed by another man actually stems from watching porn. Mm. I don't have any experience with the whole cucking situation, but
And cucking, he's talking about cucking, and that's the thing where you have, it's basically tag team, where you tag in somebody else and they come in and, you know, put your wife's vagina into a figure four leg lock onward.
But I would think that being married for only 5 years, that it may be a little too early to start making those kind of requests in the bedroom. And if it was my wife, I know it would kind of freak her out. She'd feel like she didn't know who I was, like I wasn't the man she married.
And that's a good point. You know, if you can't surprise, you can't be like, hey, you know, I got a new sex toy to your wife. And then you crack, you know, she's like, well, what is it? And she's looking in the drawers. And then next thing you know, she's looking in the bedside table. And next thing you open the closet door and it's Big Ralph, you know, or it's Thick Hank, you know, rocking out. You know, you can't, all of a sudden you're a conductor. You're not even a participant in y'all's relationship. You're more of a conductor at that point. You know, and you're just fueling up that, you know, you fueling up Ralph or Hank if you getting them Gatorades or anything while they're doing activity. You know, so you got to think about some of that. And yeah, maybe you've evolved into some other type of deal, brother. You know, Adam, our original caller. Maybe you've evolved or devolved, however you want to look at it. You know, or your tastes have changed. But that might not be what your wife signed up for, you know? I mean, these are just thoughts, brother. Let's hear some more. Another caller. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, it's Bob, long-time listener.
Big Bob. Dude, I'll tell you this, man. They had a guy in my town named Big Bobby Bobertson, right? Bobby Bobertson. And this boy was big. He might be deceased now. Bless him. Beautiful guy, but he was so big that you didn't want him to fall on anything sharp because he would just pop. You know what I'm saying? You didn't want him to fall on a nail or anything. He would just explode. He was that big. Just pressure. You could see his insides were just pressed up against his skin. You know, he couldn't, there was just nothing. There was no room for anything. You know, his eyes, he looked like he was just trapped. His eyes looked like they were just two balls that were trapped in his head. But he he eventually actually kidnapped somebody and got busted for pistol whipping some young fella. But before that, he was a attendant at a gas station, 24-hour gas station where you could get gas and different delectables, mostly fatty delectables like, rotisserie hot dogs and cheese dips and, chips, Slim Jims, Gobstoppers, ices, freezies, snack cakes, different things like that. Sometimes milk, but the milk would only last for a few days or maybe 24 hours. You know what I'm talking about, gas station milk. A gas station, you know what I'm talking about. Well, he worked there, And he used to let us go sit in there during high school. We put lawn chairs in there by the beer cooler, and just drink beers back there and just sit in there, like have a little powwow right back by the beer coolers there in the beautifully lit gas station. I think it was called an AM PM. But anyhow, Big Bobby Bobertson. But nice to hear you, Bob. Let's go.
This is that question about Adam was raising if porn is cheating. I've been married for quite a while now, almost 15 years, and
Whoo, that big kink say. More?
And I've been beating my meat since the day I can remember. And ain't nothing wrong with, getting your hands on yourself and staying in touch with yourself and, just being one with yourself. And,
Oh, yeah, G'ing up. Sometimes you got to drink a Red Bull and just jerk off, and get out there, be an outdoorsman. Let's hear more.
Men have beaten off forever. They're going to continue beating off. And
Well, I don't know about that. Will 300 years from now, will men still be masturbating? Who knows, brother? That's a big speculation. Onward.
Porn is just a way to, get that energy out, and, I feel like if you take that away from a man, then, who knows where that energy is going to be directed to. For all I know, you take away my porn, you're taking away my biscuits and gravy, my freedom, you're taking away everything, so.
Now, you heard it. You're taking away everything. If you take away that man's pornography, then what's next? You're going to take away his guns. You're going to take away his pudding pops. You're going to take away his ability to buy gasoline. Where does it stop? So, yeah, you're just saying men need it, that it's okay. And look, for most men it is. But this lady don't want this man having it in the household. He don't want it to be a part of their relationship because it affects it. But for you, it doesn't. Some men, I think it's an unhealthy scenario, and in his situation right there, it's not. So Bob right there is not affected. That's what's referred to by many, Bob, as being unaffected. You're unaffected by it. Let's hear a little bit more here.
How's it going, Theo? It's Mason from Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston. Yep.
And I'm calling in regards to that fella who was talking about filming his wife and another man having sex. I gotta say to him, I don't think that's right at all. She says that him watching porn is cheating, but then he wants her to fuck another guy, and that's okay. I don't know, brother. I don't know about that. That seems like the dark arts to me more than anything.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's definitely the dark arts. That's why we're discussing it here. There's no doubt about it. The man, she said no to that. He's thinking about introducing it. He's got an infection. He's got that itch to see that visual. He's got that itch. That's what I think. But these are you guys' thoughts. And that's why we have this follow-up episode. Let's check in a little more. Here we go.
Hi, Theo. I'm calling from Miami, Florida.
Oh, mommy from Miami. Beep, 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 beep. Papayas.
This is in response to the guy that wanted to bring another guy in to be with his wife.
Yes.
And film it. As somebody who's married, I don't think that porn's cheating, even though I did think that at first. I'm totally over that, and I don't find it cheating.
Okay, so you don't find it cheating? And this is from a lady who is married here, guys. She giving her, throwing in her 4 cents. Let's hear more.
However, I would say that about the whole bringing the guy into the bedroom, I think he should maybe reconsider that or really analyze whether he really wants to bring another guy in or if he's just tired of watching himself in the videos that he's making at home. Because if that's the case, then maybe he should just talk to his wife about the whole porn situation. I don't know. I just feel like...
Yeah, look, and I'm just going to cut you off there, but that's a great point. Maybe you're just tired of watching yourself, Adam, Maybe you need to spruce yourself up. Instead of bringing another man in, why don't you maybe do a disguise? Maybe paint your legs dark, Why don't you, I know, people don't want to, doing blackface and stuff like that. It's, some people think it's ridiculous to do it especially if you're being racially insensitive. Of course, anything is, but if you paint your body full body or put some, skin toner on to darken up a little bit, maybe do that, and then be in the videos. Then you can be that kind of, you can be that urban gentleman, you know, or get a tattoo, or wear some wings or something. You can be that nightingale, you know, or if you wear a Mexican hat, you know, there's different stuff you can do. You know, you can grow some of your body hair out and be Russian or be Italian. You know, you can, get Yiddish. You know, do something, get Yiddish, man. Eat some bad food and then bang a little or something, you know. I mean, there's definitely different things you can do. So I think maybe that's another thing you might want to spruce up. Or just hire a better editor. Maybe that'll make the stuff you guys are filming more exciting. But I appreciate your call, young lady. That's a good idea. Let's hear some more. Here we go.
Yo, what up, Theo? This is your boy Luke from California.
Big
your
Luke.
Opinion on some things that have been going on in my life. I've been a victim of the dark arts.
We all have been, sir.
These last couple of years. I'm married. I have a kid. You know, and I love my wife. I love my kids. Or my kid. And
I'm going to save that call, actually. I'm going to save that call for Sunday. I'm going to save that call for the Monday episode, Luke, if you don't mind, man. I think it just, I'd like to get into that a little bit more, and it seems like it fits a little bit better for then, so we'll check in on that Monday. But let's check one more caller here that we had come in talking about this pornography. Is it cheating? Is it not cheating? And what it looks like bringing somebody else in your own homestead there, you know, for sensual play and for, you know, body joy.
Hey Theo, this is Punk Ass from Baltimore.
Punk Ass from Baltimore, and Baltimore is a place where if you have some spare dope and you don't feel like doing it where you live, you can drive to Baltimore and do it. Nobody probably will notice. Baltimore, good place to get crab and murdered. Let's hear more.
Calling in about, is porn cheating? Hell no, porn is not cheating.
Now this fella sound like somebody that, you know, familiar with his own body. You know what I'm talking about.
And I get the other side. I've been to church meetings and things trying to convince me and show me that porn's cheating. And I get it, and I probably...
Oh, indeed, the Lord will try to keep you off your own meat, you know? He didn't build you and make you into this special creature for you to be, fucking your own hand out there in the yard. More?
Probably do agree that if you're living in a fantasy world, that can't be good for the intimacy of a marriage. But I just think calling it cheating is just not a good way to help. It's just labeling people something that they're not, that the rest of the world hates, just to try and be more dramatic.
And that's a good point. Is label, yeah, if you call it cheating, then that's, you know, then it's this whole other thing. You know, then it's, yeah, is it cheating? It's a great point. Is it cheating? Or is it just, this is how he's getting his jollies? You know? He don't want to eat sugar at the house. He popping these little jelly beans on the side. You know? That's what's going on really here. You know, so let's hear that one more time. That's a really good point.
That if you're living in a fantasy world, that can't be good for the intimacy of a marriage.
That's true. If your relationship is there with that screen, then how realistic is your relationship in physical form with your spouse?
But I just think calling it cheating is just not a good way to help. It's just labeling people something that they're not, that the rest of the world hates, just to try and be more dramatic. I just think there should be another word for it. Like, it reminds me when I'm watching the news.
Yeah, that's true. There should be another word for it, you know? You know, Matt, yeah. What's in it? What's that another word? You know, if you're being like that, you know, if you patty caking, you know, but only using one hand and your other hand is a wiener and it's your own wiener. That's a lot of questions there. But yeah, by calling it cheating, are we just labeling? Are we making it scarier? You know, then you're in a whole different situation instead of just being, you know, hey, my husband's behaving like this. He's doing this. He's doing these activities. He's doing that one-handed patty cake. Other hand, wiener. So let's hear the rest of this. And there's a fire in the background. I started a fire, like a safe fire for joy.
Reminds me when I'm watching the news. When I'm watching the news and there's a story about a little girl who's been kidnapped, and then you sit down and watch for 10 minutes, and the kidnapper is her father, and we're not even sure if he's dangerous. It just seems like just a way to get attention to something you don't like by trying to make a big deal about it. And I know the kidnapping thing is much more serious, but I've always thought that there should be another word for that.
Yeah, no, and I get your point. A lot of times, yeah, you get all these Amber Alerts 6-7 times a night, and it's just some child's real father trying to spend some time with them, because there's some bullshit going on with the courts, or it's a real mother just trying to, finally get their kid back from an evil grandparent. I agree. It's a lot of clickbait out there. And so, it makes me wonder, too, maybe even with Adam's call, was he framing it up? Is he just trying to, how realistic is he being with us? Is he just taking us on a wild goose chase, making him think that he's caught up in this wild universe, with these, does his wife really think it's cheating? But then he's bringing this in. It sounds like I think, if we had to come to some overall conclusion, it sounds like Adam's just not making some good choices. He's choosing this and he's going to get caught up. And what happens after that? Where does that end? I mean, that's one of my biggest things really is where does that end, All right, let's get to one more here.
Hey, Theo. My name is Gina, and I'm a first-time caller.
Thanks for calling, Gina. That's my mother's name, and that's a beautiful name. I don't know. I'm going to look up right now what it means. I feel kind of sad that I don't even know what Gina means. Meaning of Gina. It's an English name, a baby name. Eugenia, Regina, Gina, Gina Lollobrigida. That was a famous Italian, I guess. Ginas make great actors or singers. My mother could not do either of those. And some of them just can be good writers, it says. Is an English baby name. That's all it says. So, anyhow, we learned that your name doesn't really mean much, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you don't mean something to us. Let's hear a little bit more from you, Gina. Thanks for calling.
I want to comment on Adam's cuckolding issue.
Well, be like that, boo-boo, and get that comment out.
Adam, your cuckolding situation, man, I'm nervous for that conversation. I just don't see it going well. I don't see your wife being open to that. I can't imagine it. But I do wish you luck with that. And Theo, I do want to say how much we appreciate you, man. I do love listening to you. You make me laugh so hard. And when you say at the end of most of your episodes to be good to yourself because we probably deserve it, man, that's some of the nicest shit anybody says to me all week. And I hope you're good to yourself too because I know you deserve it because we appreciate getting to laugh. Oh,
that's nice of you to say, Gina. I appreciate that. Man, that really resonates with me more than hearing my own mother talk to me some. I don't know why. It's crazy sometimes how we can hear a stranger's voice better than we can hear some of the voices that are closest to us. I don't know what that is. But thanks, Gina. Yeah. What's he getting into? How deep's it going to go? Adam, these women are worried for you. It sounds like everybody's a little bit worried for you, How does this end? Are you getting caught up in these dark arts? How deep you going to go, Cat Daddy? All right, let's take one more call here and see what we can get. Caller.
Hey, Theo. It's Becca from Southern California.
Becca, thank you for calling.
I'm calling as a divorced woman of 8 years in response to Adam's call. Dude, I had to pause your little video because that call was so creepy that I had to take a breath and find my cell phone and be like, dude, I gotta call that hotline. I don't make these calls, but
you got to hit that hotline when things get squirrely. When suddenly you feel like an oak tree because you got squirrels running through your body. That's when you need to hit the hotline. 985-664-9503. Give me more, Becca. Let me get that hitter.
Anyway, so Adam, you are embarking on a very dangerous path, and you'll probably in 6 months be dead because this is the beginning of how murder mysteries start, bro. It all started when Adam said, hey, I want you to, have sex with my friend, Steve,
It's always Steve, isn't it? It's all, even in hypothetical scenarios, Steve being nasty. Yes, more?
Then Steve and Adam's wife had a thing on the side where she was like, oh, no, I don't like Steve, but she did like Steve. And then, like, oh, Adam's got, like, life insurance. And now, bro, you just cut yourself out of the equation. So.
Yep, right there. You hear, Adam, you might be on your way to a Dateline episode. ADAMDEAD. Adam Hardy has two of the same letters as dead. Two of the same letters. So, you're close. Let's hear more.
Oh, I don't know, what is wrong with you? Maybe you should just be happy with it. You're getting laid. I don't know.
And there you go. That might be the general consensus right there. That might be the general consensus from all of us. All right, I want to thank you guys for calling in. I'm tired. It's late. I'm going to get out of here, but I'll be back on Monday. And we already had some really good callers with some really good stuff to go over on Monday. I'll update you guys. I'm headed to Calgary, Canada tomorrow. So I'm keyed up, Get up there, visit them Canadians and look them in the eye and just let them know that we're doing okay down here, that we're down here battling these dark arts. Thank you to our lovely female listeners that called in. And I'll see you guys next time. Be good to yourselves because you know why. You probably deserve it. You want to catch another hitter, you can grab that Gray Block Pizza. It's on Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. And they got them stylish pies, man. If you ever feeling empty, go fill yourself. Gray Block Pizza. They got that picante pollo, that zingaro, huh? That Grecian. They got the Grecian, huh? Used to have a Grecian, came to our town once a year trying to sell oil paintings. Olive oil, though. And homemade oils and shit. Horrible artwork. And the thing is about a bad artist, man, sometimes you'll buy that shit just to get that bastard away from you. So not everybody in our town, but a lot of people had these shitty paintings because the dude was such a good salesman. So everybody got this horrible fucking artwork. But the guy was just such a good, oh, you need, you need the artwork, Don't you want this, this peanuts? Worst drawings and paintings of peanuts. Shit smelled like, dude, I think he was using condiments sometimes to paint with. I don't know what the fuck that dude's deal was. But that's life, man. That's life in a small town. I remember they had another boy lived by me named Bubby Jenkins. And his daddy, and he was adopted, He was picked up out of the ether at a governmental center. And that's adoption. And it's a game show. When you're in foster care, your life is a straight up game show. Every time a parent comes in the room, it's just like dun 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 dun, because that's your chance. That's your chance to be that hitter, And he got picked. He got scooped up. He's probably about I don't remember how old he was when he got picked up, but he got picked up by some parents, and that's. And it was like, I think he was like 11. So at that point, you're like you're a 6th or 7th round draft pick. You getting late. You are a late round pick. And he got picked up. Anyway, what was this story about, dude? I was talking about they've had an artwork. Jenkins. Oh, his daddy used to drive me to school. And his dad was Italian. I think he was Italian. I don't know. He was kind of sunburnt and had dark hair. And at that young age of my life, I thought that was Italian, And he was sunburnt and had dark hair, and he used to smoke cigarettes inside of his car. And he would, his wife wouldn't let him smoke inside. And so he would go smoke outside in the car. He would sit in there and just hotbox his car with them Winstons, out there blowing Winstons and huffing down, This dude was probably 900% Muppet. Dressed like Johnny Cash, and he'd sit out there and smoke them cigarettes, them cigarillos. And he used to, when I would miss the school bus, he would give me a ride to school. And he would quiz me on my spelling words, and the whole time he'd blow that cigarette and smoke in my face. Catch me with that hit of smoke. You know, just light me up with that backy, that tobacco cloud, you know. He'd be like, all right, spell inconvenience. And I'd be like, I-N-C. And then he'd hit me with that backy cloud, you know. And then I was like, O-N. Man, it's hard to smell. I mean, it's hard to spell. It's hard to do either one in a cloud of smoke. And that is the God's honest truth, man. That's the gospel, according to your boy right here. But it's hard to spell when an adult man is blowing that backy smoke into your face. And that was just another unique man that lived in my town growing up. But good to see you guys today. It is Monday, December 4th in the year 2017. And look, they had a beautiful moon. I don't know if you guys got to get a peek at it. And it might still be out there even tonight or whenever you're listening to this, but they got that beautiful moon. And that moon, man, that thing is just like like one of God's nuts just fell out of his ball bag and landed in the sky. I mean, that is that beautiful. I mean, it's like somebody just washed the chocolate off of a damn Almond Joy. And all that's there is that big coconut with that nut in it, you know, and that's what the moon is a lot of times. It's just that big sweet ball of sucrose floating up there, you know, and that's just that's just one of Mother Nature's fucking, you know, that's just one of Mother Nature's marbles, and that thing's beautiful. But if you didn't get to see it, go check that moon, because sometimes we forget to look at the sky. I don't know if it's happened to you recently, but I'll forget to look up at the sky and remember. I get caught down here in little things on my phone, you know, looking at papers, you know, seeing what my neighbor's cat is doing, you know, because a lot of times he'll get out. But I have a very strange relationship with my neighbor's cat, and some of you guys know that, you know, and he'll get out there. Sometimes he can tell, this is going to sound crazy, dude, but if I am in my house, you know, pleasuring myself, he can tell it, you know, and he will wait by the door sometimes, or he will, you know, make meow noises and meow sounds and do meowing, and he can tell when I am spending time by myself or trying to be, you know, lightly emotional with myself. But yeah, that is a really wild cat. So anyhow, it's Monday, and what's going on in our lives today? You know, it's December, so we're starting to narrow down what's happening in our existences for this year. This year's going to be in the books. And you can start to feel it in the air, you know. People are a little more friendly. You know, I have the Christmas carols going on full blast in my automobile. Man, I love the Christmas carols. And bells will be ringing. The ones I don't like, Mariah Carey. Dude, I wish a fucking missile would hit that, you know. I wish it would just hit her right in her, in that dark cinnamon coont of hers. Mariah Carey's a straight muppet. She's what's wrong with this country, man. Mariah Carey. You heard it here. But what else? I was in Canada. I got to play cards with Bill Burr. I'll start there. So I'll tell you this. They have this podcast network called All Things Comedy, and they've been very gracious over time to allow me to have my other podcast called Allegedly on there with my friend Matthew Cole Weiss. And on that same network, there's a new show where comedians sit and play poker together. So, you know, I get an email, come play, and it was a great group. Bert Kreischer, Bill Burr, Steve Ranazzisi, who died in 9/11 but didn't die in 9/11, and John Reap, who's one of the first comedians that I ever featured for down in Louisiana. And John Reap, you know, he's the Hemi guy. He's like, that thing got a Hemi. He's from Hickory, North Carolina. And it was just great, man. We got to sit in a warehouse, have pizza. People was drinking alcohol and just play some cards, play some poker together, joke around. We were just joking about how hard it is to be a man today. But it was interesting to just be around Bill Burr. I'm obviously a huge fan. There's no one more confident on stage than Bill Burr. I can listen to that man forever. And he's always like, what you're going to get. He doesn't seem too affected by ego. He doesn't seem, he was super nice. And I've spent time around him before. I got a little vibe for being around him, but I'd never really just sat next to him for 2 hours and we're all playing in a poker game. But it was, but just a nice guy. Some of these, comedians that are at these, that are superstars, like Hollywood superstars, there's an ego that goes along with it. And I think Bill Burr is a superstar comedian, but I don't think he has that celebrity side as much as others do, if that makes any sense. Because the celebrity side is that's the ego. The side of the talent, that's the comedian side. And man, he's just one of a kind. But that was great for me, man. I'm sitting there, I'm fucking kind of nervous. I can feel Bill sitting right there next to me, We're just sitting at this half table, all playing cards, and there's about 15 people there shooting this show. And I'm I'm a little bit nervous. I know Bert Kreischer really well. I know the other 3 guys at the table well. Bert Kreischer, the machine, and I've known Bert for a long time and John for a long time, so I feel more comfortable around them. But to be sitting there, next to a guy who's just, man, I just felt inspired. I felt really, really inspired. So that was a great moment for me, just to be able to be, in those guys' presence, with an activity that we all are doing together. So it's, it's just poker. We're just playing around, and I'm trying to think of some. Bill made me laugh a few times. Everybody made me laugh. I tried to be a little more quiet and just listen instead of, trying to, put my 2 cents into it a lot. But it was great, man. We had a great time. That was a real joy. And then I was up in Canada, in Calgary. Let me tell you this: if you haven't been to Calgary, I'm thinking Calgary. What is it? I didn't even know Canada was a real place for a long time. I thought it was just a place where America practiced safety, and practiced safety equipment. Because when you think about Canada, you think, well, what is it? What is Canada? It's America's hat. It's this cold hat that America wears. If you look at a map, it's like this big cold hat. And I'll tell you this, there's people up there. And they're as friendly. I don't feel any stress when I'm in Canada. You get there and you don't feel like nobody's judgmentally looking around. There's so much less judgment. People keep to themselves, but not in a way where they're doing it to keep away from you. In America, there's this weird, and maybe I feel it more in Los Angeles, and that's definitely so. You go into some smaller towns, into some real communities here in this fine country, and you don't feel it as much, but in Los Angeles, you feel everybody, looking over oh, who's this mother? Who's it? Who's this? Oh, look at that. Big Daniel, with his, full body cast, or who's this bitch over here, wearing electricity around her neck with them Louis Vuittons or whatever. Who's this? Oh, this kid's got, this kid's a gender neutral sea bass, and he thinks he's a shit because he's got a fin coming out of his back, and 4 different types of genitalia between his legs. Oh, people think that they're fancy out here, but you don't feel that in Canada. In Canada, everybody's just Canadian. Some people may have a little more than others here and there, but in the end that it seems like everybody kind of has each other's back. And now look, I've been to maybe 5 cities in Canada. Bro, Canada, you could lay down in the street, middle of the street, in a city, in a downtown, fall asleep, and when you woke up in the morning, someone would have put a blanket on you. And cars that were driving down the street would have probably shut their engines off when they got close to you, gotten out of the car, and pushed their car past you as to not wake you up. That's the kind of people are just way considerate of others. And it's not like they're trying to be, it's in their nature. It kind of reminds me, if I had to guess what America was like maybe, 50 years ago. And maybe not for everybody, but, it'd probably be, Canada's very white. So it'd probably be what America was like for most people. I know there was a lot of racial tension and struggle. But for regular white people, I bet it was similar to probably something that Canada is. Canada's diverse too, man. They have, it's pretty white, but everybody's, they have a lot of Indian, a lot of Pakistani. I don't know. I had a blast, man, up in Calgary. I didn't know this about Calgary either. It's like the second richest city in the world because of oil. They got that drip, drip. They got that drip, droppity drop. Damn, boy, that oil. And what else happened to me, man? That was it. We flew up there. We had 4 guys. Pancreatic cancer. It was like a charity function. We went. We did it. What else? We had some fans come out. Had this gentleman named Chris came out. I think he drove 6 hours or something. He made this beautiful art for me that he drew about the Hampin' Ain't Easy, about the tour from this year. He drew that up for me. It was phenomenal, man. I just want to thank him for driving in and just bringing that to me. It really touched me because it's just nice of somebody to do that, to go out of their way to do something special for somebody else. What else? I got back last night. I went and spoke at an AA meeting. You go to these meetings sometimes and, you sit in there and you talk at like some of these centers. And these centers, they have, it's guys that are in like these treatment facilities. And you go in there and, they got 8 or 9 guys in the room. And some of them you can tell like, they're down on their luck. You can feel it. And it's tough because, I go in there and I'm just clean. I'm clean. I just got out of a shower at my apartment, and, I drove over there in my, my clean car, and it's comfortable. And I walk in there and I have clean clothes and, I have somewhere to be when I leave. I have something to do the next day. And I walk in and I sit in some of these rooms with these men. And this was a men's only meeting. So that's why it was just men. And I sit in there and I'm just start listening to these guys, just saying hello. And you can feel some of them like when they shake your hand, like their hands shaking kind of. And it just brings me back down to like the reality of life, of my life, of the world that I'm in. Because I can easily get caught up running around thinking, what do I need to do next? What does my money look like for the year? How am I going to best turn this next deal thing that's going on? What's my next move to propel myself? To think about me. And then I go to these meetings, and this is one of the main reasons I go to these meetings, And I don't talk about this kind of stuff that much on here because, part of the AA stuff is you're not supposed to talk about it. But you know what? Whatever. This is part of my life sometimes, and more often than not, it's part of my life. But I go sit in there, and these guys, and you go around the room and you share. It's called a panel, and there's like 3 or 4 guys, and we sit and we share our story. We share like what our story is. It's just kind of wild because, I went from this crazy weekend where I was out in, I'm up in a different country and I'm doing a show and there's 500-600 people and it's, a sold out venue and we got to be, we got to be the hit, we got to be that hitter. We got to be that backy smoke. We were that backy smoke that was getting all in people's faces and veins and eyes. And then, I get off that plane and I get back in just into a reality that sets me down and sets my spirit at a level where I'm just not thinking about myself. And you just share, and you share your story. When I talk to these men about, that I'm not there to preach to them. I'm just there to share what's going on in my life. And just how I grew up feeling inferior and just never feeling okay. And just always feeling like I was looking, always feeling like I had everything, always feeling like I had to, like things had to be changed. But no matter how many little ways I changed them, I was never reaching a desired effect. I was never feeling a comfortability. And things would be great. Things would be great or bad, or, I was never able to find a comfort. And that's just what I started sharing with these guys. And then I come into these rooms now, and I go to these meetings, and suddenly I'm in a group of people, and we're all have something in common. And that commonality is it's a problem. We all have some type of a problem, an addiction or a discomfort or a uneasiness or a loneliness. That's why we all come to these meetings. And when I sit in there, there's just something special when it makes me feel when I'm part of a group, when I don't feel alone. Even if it's something fucked up that brought us all together. It's like, I don't even care. Dude, I don't care if all of us have no arms or legs and no head, and we all crawl to just this body pile up, meet up, just like a bunch of boulders, and we all just roll around on each other like rocks. I would probably feel joy in that just because of the fact that I'm in a group. I think as most of my life I felt so, for some reason on the inside, I just felt so separate. I just felt like, I just never felt like a part of something, and I just never felt okay. And I sit in these groups and I'm talking to these guys and that's just makes me feel okay for some reason. And I think a lot of it's just the connection, the connectivity, because we can get separate. We can get separate pretty quick out here. So anyhow, man, that was my weekend. I didn't mean to get all wild or weird on you there. Just trying to share some of what it's like when, being in this AA program. I've been in here for about 16 months now. I don't know if I'll always be in this program. I don't know if I'll always be a part of it, but for now I am. And I'm grateful because I get to have moments where I go into rooms and I don't feel alone. And the people that I'm there to share my story with, they don't feel alone. And it's crazy that by sharing our problems, or coming together because we have an issue, that is how we don't feel alone anymore. That's how we solve our problem, Because forever you're out here trying to solve your problem all these different ways when all you really needed was to fill up that void that makes you feel like you have a problem in the first place. So I don't even know if that makes any sense, but something just propelled it right out of my body. I'll tell you what does make a little bit of sense to me is that television shows have gotten horrible. They're not entertaining anymore, It's so bad. A lot of times your own dog will leave the room if you have a dog. Or if you have mice in the walls, you can sometimes hear them scurry off when you put on a certain program. It's because TV and film aren't about entertainment anymore. They're about advertisement. That's what you have to understand. What you're watching is an advertisement cloaked in light entertainment. Entertainment is the secondary goal of the programming you're watching. Well, that's changing now because we're putting things back in the hands of the people. And when I say we, it's an organization called Liveetree. Liveetree.com. You can go there. It's changing the entertainment industry by creating a new platform called Adept. The public will be able to fund what they want to watch, own what they help produce, decide who's in it, what goes on through the process of content creation, funding, and distribution. It's basically like suddenly entertainment is going to become almost like, I don't want to say fantasy football because this is a reality, but you're going to be able to invest and then have a say-so in who is in something, and if the project does well, have a return on your investment. How crazy is that? That is what is going on at Liveetree. You can go to liveetree.com and check it out, see what is happening. The revolution is now. I'm definitely going to be over there checking it out myself. All right, let's get into the news. We'll go with big news first, and then we'll get into some smaller stuff. North Korea firing missiles. Psh, oh, well. Shoot them off, bro. Shoot them off, dude. That's nothing. I used to know a guy who could spit high up in the air and catch it in his mouth, dude, every time. And that's all you remind me of, North Korea. If you want to shoot something, shoot it up. Pop, pop. Because y'all ain't doing nothing. You're over there Wizard of Ozing. beating people for chewing gum. God forbid somebody learns to blow a bubble and you're out there beating them with sticks or whatever you guys are doing, making people juggle eggs and stuff and teaching babies how to juggle and dance and shit like that. I've seen it on the internet with those electronic dancing babies and all of that. And I've seen what you guys are doing. Over there, you got infants over there riding on gators and doing all kinds of shit and wearing neck braces and stuff. And I don't know what you guys are up to, but shoot your little missiles, guy. You're never going to do anything. Here's why. Because you love your existence over there. Yet Yam Say, whatever that guy's name is, Yam Cham. Douse. I was going to say Dao Sang. That's not it. Whoever. Oh, fuck. I almost said Obi-Wan Kenobi, dude. I don't remember. But whoever you are, bro, you're not doing shit, dude. Shoot your missiles, dude. What else? A Navy pilot drew giant dicks in the sky with a fighter jet. How about this? Awesome. Sounds awesome, dude. Easy, though, to draw a dick, I think. I'd love to see the guy get a little bit more intimate. Draw some vagine out there in the clouds, Wouldn't it be cool to see a big cloud going by with a nice hoo-ha on it? With that little bit of a spoiled cookie out there? Because I've seen some spoiled cookies out there, especially down near Tampa. And when you get down near that Gulf of Mexico, they got some spoiled cookies down there. A lot of them ladies ain't taking care of their bakeries. You feel me? I'm having coffee. What else? A grandmother accidentally invites a stranger to Thanksgiving. I love how that's news now. Back in the old days, that was just called being nice. Grandmother accidentally invites a stranger to Thanksgiving. Lucky guy. Here's another one. Undercover Detroit cops try and arrest each other and then fight. Fuck yes. That might be the best headline I ever even read. Detroit cops undercover cops trying to arrest each other, and then when it's not working out, for some reason, they fight each other. That's so Detroit. I love that. You know what? I always wonder why they only have undercover cops. Why is that the only job where you're undercover, Like, I would love it, like an undercover stripper. You're at the bakery, you're buying a couple of donuts maybe. The lady's like, oh, do you want these? You want these Krellers? Or you want these tits? And suddenly she's an undercover stripper. You didn't have any idea. How great would that be, huh? Oh, you want that bear claw? Or you want that fox foot? And she just spreads them gams open, You want that bear claw? Or you want that that eagle's underbite, and she just shows you that cooter. Good times, though. Navy pilots drawing dicks in the sky. Undercover cops fighting each other. It's like the 80s all over again. I love it. People say the world's falling apart. Are you doing okay? Here's how to know if your world is falling apart. Look at your world. Talk to your family. See what's going on. Take care of your home. Take care of the people around you. You're good. The world isn't falling apart. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. I'm just amazed people have so much time online all day to fight about all this bullshit. If you have time to fight about it, then you're probably doing okay. What else? Let's see. In my hometown, a Mexican restaurant opened up in downtown Covington, Louisiana. And that's beautiful to see. And I want to say a belated congratulations to the Covington High School Lions from my hometown. They made it to the quarterfinals, and they lost last week. But I know that was huge for them down there and everybody just bringing the community together and having some local excitement. And I watched that game on the YouTube, and it was beautiful to watch and just see, and hear people down there. You could hear, it's a good community. You got all types down there. You got people that can't read, and you got people that can read. But it's a good time, and and I'm just happy for that environment down there to see your hometown do something big. But they got a new Mexican restaurant downtown. I remember the first Mexican kid we ever got in my town. And I've told that story before about Mexican Nicholas when he came to town. Beautiful boy. And he had that kind of canary nutmeg tint on his skin, you know. And he had that mustache, you know, that word curtain. You know, a lot of Latino boys, they strain their whole childhood just to sprout that word curtain, you know. And he came into class, he came into sex ed. We just started learning about sex ed at school, you know. And I thought it was going to be this dude named Ed was going to run in the room, spray out. Because I'd seen this fella working freelance by the train tracks. So I'm thinking, hell yeah, finally Ed is getting his money. You know, finally Ed is coming up. Ed is getting work. But it's a synonym, sexual education. It's a synonym. But he came into class. I remember our principal opened the door to our classroom in science. Science, boy, you could hold an animal at your desk. You'd be sitting at your desk. Mr. Blackwell was our teacher. You're sitting at your desk holding a baby squirrel, holding a hamster, G-pig, oyster, lizard. One kid in our class, he'd been in a fire. He couldn't hold anything that would scratch his skin, so he'd get the oyster every time. You know, he's sitting in class, little Sherman get that oyster. Because he got them fire hands, you know. He got them paper mache hands, you know. You can't put anything real heavy or real spicy on him. Because he's already been in a fire. And you don't spice up somebody that's been in a fire. You don't surprise them with any, you know, turmeric or any salsa or anything like that. Boy, that shit'll eat right through their skin. Very, very little skin on a fire person. So little Sherman, he'd get that oyster every time they set that soft oyster in his hand, you know, because it wasn't going to move or try to scratch him. But everybody's sitting in class. You got an animal, you know, got a little pet. Because we're learning about science, you know, usually. So you got a piece of science in your hand. A living piece, one of the Lord's little, you know, one of the Lord's little dirt puppets. You know, you have one of them, one of the Lord's little Voltrons, an animal, a piece of science on legs, a damn animal. Something that can fuck, dude, when you're not around. Think about that. You ever think about that? You ever close your eyes and think to yourself how many animals are fucking right now? If you ever got an ego and you want to take yourself out of ego, put yourself into reality, you do that. You close your eyes. Think that in the distance right now, there are animals just fucking each other. There are all types of animals. Cats, moose, not devil worshippers. Yeah, devil worshippers, dude. They're not animals, but they're not doing well as people. And all types of animals. The forest is a fuck fest, dude. It's an orgy. You think that we always think the animals are just kind of milling around eating. These animals are fucking each other. That's what they're up to. Dude, there's a lot of videos online. I've been online watching a lot of funerals. A lot of funerals online recently. I've been watching funerals online. And it's kind of crazy, I guess. You know, I guess it makes me feel like a part of something. You know, and I like to have feelings. So a funeral will give you a feeling, you know, if you're sitting there watching the service and people sharing their feelings and stuff. And you can comment, you know, Dale seemed nice, you know. Some people have rude comments, you know. You know, there were some rude comments, you know. Let's see some titties up in this motherfucker. Some dude in all caps. Like, damn, bro. You know, Dale worked for the post office. I don't think that's that's the kind of severance package he was talking about. But anyway, Nicholas came in our classroom, Mexican Nicholas. He'd been in class, you know. Our principal opens the door. She said, "Students," it yells, "new student." And it was him, his first Mexican. Sat in class, raised his hand. Been in class 4 minutes, dude. In sex ed, he raised his hand, and he said, "Hey, Mr. Blackwell, what does pop that cherry mean, Holmes?" What does pop that cherry mean, Holmes? And he became a legend. He became a legend. And that was the first Mexican ever. But now it's great to see that small towns are evolving. You know, people want to look at small towns and say these people aren't diverse. We had one shot at diversity, and we made that kid a legend. Just so sick of people saying, oh, well, you know, you don't have diversity, you don't have this, you know, you're not diverse because you don't have something. Yeah, you don't know something until you have it. You can't force something on somebody. Diversity is a blessing. If you get to live in a diverse place, then that's a blessing. And if you aren't experiencing it, if you have neighbors that are different and you're not getting some sort of an experience with them, then you're missing out. You are missing out. And that's the truth. That is the truth, man. A little bit more news here. Man accidentally burns down 3 buildings and damages 20 others trying to make a sword in his backyard. Well, fuck yeah, he did. I mean, that's obvious right there. A man, questionable there, obviously, burns down 3 buildings and damages 20 other buildings trying to make a sword in his backyard. On December 1st, a man was in his backyard. First of all, some of these backyards, what's going on back there? How much space, how much room you need back there? What are you doing? What are you doing back there in your yard with your fucking equipment and saws? What are you doing? You building swords? Well, get it together, guy. On December 1st, a man was in his backyard. A man. What a piece of shit. It was probably a white man, too, you know. They fuck everything up. Sorry for my language, guys. I'm not in a bad mood today, but I'm just fired up. I'm feisty, you know. A man was in his backyard playing Game of Thrones. Dude. By trying to make his own sword, he got the furnace up and running to melt the steel. What, bro? Use wood, bro. The only problem was that there was 30-mile-per-hour winds going that day, and the embers hit nearby buildings, burning down 3 and damaging 20 others. Still waiting on the update of how the sword turned out. Well, that's what you get for making swords, right there. You lose all your friends. Literally, you lose all your friends. You cost their friends their place to live. Amazon contractor decides to deliver his own package by taking a dump in someone's driveway. Well, that's what happens when Amazon's trying to, same-day delivery. Guy don't have time to shit. A guy doesn't have time to shit because he's got to get a new pair of sandals to your stepmother. What the hell is going on? Do you need it that fast? Same-day delivery? Guy probably gets fired or docked pay if there's probably an access code on the shitter. If he presses his code in there to go to use the actual, room day digestion, then he's going to get fined. So now the man got a shit local, when he's out and about. This week, an Amazon contractor got caught taking a shit in someone's driveway. Well, that's for driving, dude. It says it in the word. After he placed their package on the front porch, he was caught on film. You can watch that online. So if you want to watch a little bit of local shitting going on, you can check that out online. But it's just, they don't have these guys. I'm sure they probably get fined if they cough, if they sneeze. They get docked pay. They're not getting their package there quick enough. Guy breaks a sweat. That's probably, costs him $2. Man can't even shit anymore. You can have men wearing diapers running around. Men and strong women and some lesbians running around wearing diapers. Just so your frickin' Uncle Marty can get a rare pack of Oreo cookies that just came out. The hell is going on? Other news, magnitude 4.4 earthquake strikes off the coast of Dover, Delaware. Well, finally Delaware's in the news. I forgot about Delaware, didn't you? You did too. I know you forgot about Delaware. Delaware. What is it? It's Britain, basically. It's our Britain. And if we had any balls, we'd fight them again. Because they're screwing around. Britain did a lot of shit that they don't take any responsibility for. We got James Corden on the air out here, as a host of late night television when his grandparents enslaved half the universe. What's going on, people? What else? Ranch dressing is finally available in kegs. Good. And I'm sure that'll help with. I'm sure that'll help run up the bill of insurance costs. That's got to be healthy for somebody. Give your frickin' little nephew a thermos of ranch dressing. Kids in 4th grade sitting there sucking down a couple of, pints of Thousand Island during recess. Unbelievable. Just in time for the holiday season, Hidden Valley unveiled their brand new ranch dressing keg. They say it comes with a 1-year supply of ranch in each keg. Hidden Valley, that's what they call your healthy aortas. Hidden Valleys, you can't even see them anymore because you've had so much damn ranch. But you know what? I say that's a good way to go to heaven if you're going to die. I've always been ashamed that the only ways that we have to get to heaven are after or to deal with the body are embalming or burning, I think is the second one. You're going to burn me, guy? Oh, that's brave. You seem like a smart guy. You're burning up people that are dead. What an asshole. Why don't you go make a sword and burn down your neighborhood? You frickin' sword maker. Because here's the thing. How about this? Fill me with fucking ranch, baby. Huh? Embalm this little bobcat with that ranch, boo-boo. You telling me that formaldehyde and that being what's it called when you're burnt to a crisp? Whatever it is, decapitated or something, are the only things that can happen to you after you die? No, way more options. I want to fill Daddy's body with ranch. I want to be embalmed with ranch. Take my eyeballs out, leave my mouth open, put me in the funeral casket. All my orifices open. Bunch of little things. Chips. Ooh, broccoli. Get them, pop, pop. Get them in my faces. Hit them orifices. Hit that mouth. Eye. Get that triple dip. Make me a little bit of a snack hole. That way people are actually enjoying their time at my funeral, at my showing. What about bacon wrap? How about you put a huge slab of that frickin' thick, thin ham around Daddy's neck? Damn, boy, have all the dogs barking outside of that funeral house. Boy, you'll have birds at the windows ready to get in there and just take a little bit of a nip off Daddy's freaking head vase, off that neck, off that ham. But there's way other things you could do. Black and dipped, baby backed. What if you went to somebody's funeral and their ribs had all been cooked and ready to eat? And if you wouldn't have a human rib, you're lying. You're a liar. And I tell that I'm not saying that to make fun of anybody, but if you wouldn't eat a human rib that had been perfected, cooked, maybe over there at Arthur's Barbecue or whatever in Kansas City or in Wichita, wherever that place is, you wouldn't get that hit. You can lie to yourself, just don't lie to me, because I'm not listening to it anymore. That's the news right there, really. That's the news. Let's keep it cruising here. We had a couple of calls. I'm going to hit them. I want to thank you guys for being here with me. I'm in a little bit of a weird mood, man. I'm just feisty. I haven't smoked in a whole week. Man. And I would blow. Man, if you showed me a newborn baby made out of nicotine right now, I would probably blow it. That's where I'm at. But that only lasts for like about 10 seconds, then I get past that. If you told me right now that a young Viet was hiding a couple cigarettes in his, had a little bit of that backy smoke in his bloodstream, I'd sharpen my incisors and vamp down on that boy. Catch that hitter right out of that boy's young, right out of that Dang Tran or whatever, that Zhang Ti, that river, right out of that delta, that Mekong Delta. Just latch onto that boy's neck and just get that hitter. Just fucking rocking hemoglobin right out of that young Viet stream. So I could get that hit of that backy. But I'm a weak man. I don't even know how. I got to the point where I was tired of smoking. But then here's what always happens to me. Once I tell people I'm quitting, I'm done, that's when I start again. It's like if I keep it to myself, then it builds up and it actually works, and I'll do it. I'll stick to it. But once I start to, like I'll go do something for one day. I'll go do some, curls at the gym, or I'll brush my hair for one day. And then I'll tell people, oh, I'm brushing my hair now. I'm doing curls at the gym now. Once I tell people, I don't continue it. I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is. I don't know a lot, man. Maybe that's where I'm at. All I know is that it's December. I do know that. I know that it's December, and I know that I got a call for you guys right here. Let's get to it. Here we go. Just a couple.
Yo, Theon, this is your boy, Tater, from
What's up, Tater?
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, Georgia. That's artistic country. That's artism, and that's where it's paints and clay. Onward.
I wanted to call and say what's up. I'm a machinist. We make parts to go on airplanes. I just want to let you know that's what we're doing out here. I put you on the radio, playing over the whole plant. We listen to y'all, about 8 of us on a little skeleton crew, but I just wanted to let you know that's what's going on over here in Savannah, Georgia. You got fans?
Well, I appreciate that, man. You guys make parts for airplanes. Well, guess what? I'm going to say this. First, I'm going to say thank you very much. I asked last week who listens to this show, and that's why I wanted to play this. So we have a group of machinists over there in Savannah, and they listen to it at their plant. They got a skeleton crew, and thank you for that, man. I do appreciate it. I would like to say this. Your parts are always running about 30 minutes late when I'm trying to fly. So we just got a word from the cockpit that we need to get a new part, and we're going to be delayed for 30 minutes. So if you guys could step it up after your lunch break, because I know you're over there in Savannah. You guys out there having pineapple upside down cake and wedding cake for dessert. Y'all having catfish and, baked cauliflower, doing all of that sweet potato jambalaya, casserole. I'm on fire. Y'all having that suki now. Y'all having beer with lunch. Having wedding cake for dessert. Who the fuck is having wedding cake for dessert on a Tuesday? That's the problem sometimes with some of these southern places, man. People having 7-course lunch. Bitch, it's Wednesday. You having a 7-course lunch? This isn't a Bangladeshi wedding. Okay? Lunch is 1 course. Get it and get back to work. The 2nd course of lunch is getting back to work. But I used to go to college at Charleston, man, and I love that area. Got some beautiful beaches over there not far from you guys. And I do appreciate you guys calling. Let's listen to a little bit more here.
I want to say what's up and comment for your boy that's wanting to bring other guys to the bedroom with his old lady.
Oh, yeah, that was a call that came in last week. That was what the follow-up was about. They had a gentleman named Adam who was talking about doing that cuckolding, where you have other people come in and play your video game system, Because sometimes you got that PS4, that's why you only get 1 controller with it. Because they don't really want you having friends on it. That's why your wife only has 1 vagina hole, because that's for you. That's for you. But this fella Adam wanted to have people come over and, he wanted to do Ninja Turtles, where he having 3 or 4 guys jump down in that sewer hole. But let's hear a little more.
All I can say is fuck that. That's my pussy.
Dang. Gang.
When these people do that, it's just going to cause problems and bring unwanted issues into the marriage. They might seem like they're cool about it at first, but y'all get in a fight later on, it's going to be thrown in your face.
Yeah, you heard it, man. And that's a hard-working man. That man out there making airline parts. Well, look, I'll say this also. I hope y'all ain't smoking weed out there, bro, because I fly a lot. And if y'all out there, catching that cannabis to the brain, shut it down. Because I don't want a wing part that, next thing you know, one of these wings is made out of feathers. And I'm like, what the fuck are they making over there in Savannah? But I love you guys. Thank you for the support. let's hear a little bit more. We had one more caller that called in about that Adam's response from last week. Let's hear a little more on that.
Hey, Theo. This is Brent in Colorado. Just listening to your Thursday update, man. I love the podcast.
Thanks for calling, Brent. Onward.
Just wanted to drop some science on the podcast, maybe, about the guy who was in the cuck situation, or a situation where he wanted to watch another man bang his wife. A little bit of science for you. They ran an experiment with the likelihood of impregnation with a sperm count, how high a person's sperm count was. And when they collected the samples, they would send the man home with a bit of pornography to, masturbate to.
Okay, interesting. So this is an experiment where where they did sperm collection, and they sent the men home with pornography, different types of pornography, when they were running this experiment. Onward.
So he could provide a sample. Turns out that the men who were given pornography that pictured gangbang, like multiple dudes with one woman.
Oh yeah, dude, you talking about that buffet style? You talking about that family style, like when you're at that Bloomin' Onion? You know that thing when people eating from all sides of it. But yes, onward. When men got the gangbang pornography, what happened?
The sperm count, or the sperm productivity, was much higher in those samples than if the porno watched only had one man and one woman. So
wow. A little bit of science there. More?
So there is some biological evidence to support the fact that sometimes you need to know your woman could be taken by another man. I mean, supposedly, I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying science says you got to compete a little bit for that nut, that your nut is going to compete a little bit harder.
That's that's called a nut off. When two people are trying to, out nut each other, that's a nut off, And they used to have, I remember being in elementary school, and this man, Mr. Larry, it wasn't elementary, it was middle school. But back when I went to middle school, if you were in there for long enough, and I've spoken about this gentleman before, but if you were in middle school for long enough, then they couldn't have you take the classes anymore because you couldn't get it. They would just make you a custodian. And we had a black gentleman at our school, probably been in 5th or 6th grade, maybe 7 times, Mr. Larry. Finally, he got a job custodian. But he was still friends with a lot of the kids because we all knew each other. We'd been in class with them for a couple of years. But Mr. Larry would come in and urinate in the bathroom and piss over our shoulders, because he had that hit on him, He had that club, He had that neighborhood sword that's burning down buildings, you feel me? He had that sword. He had that backyard sword. And so he would come in, and we'd be standing there urinating, and then you'd see that stream just come over you, come over your shoulder. And he had a perfect shot. I mean, he was just pistol Peteing. He was like Sam Perkins down there, just Sleepy Sam, just, hitting you, just 3-pointing over you. And he would drop that over your shoulder, Mr. Larry, and piss into that urinal, and he would hit it, and it was pretty cool. But that was like where you got kind of out pissed. You were doing urine, but he came in and said, well, I'm gonna up your urine, and I'm gonna raise you. I'm gonna see your stream and raise you, this beautiful geyser that I'm working with. And he did that, Mr. Larry. And that's kind of the same thing, I think, what this caller is saying, that, if there's some competition, that there's competition in the works, and that you get that better sperm count, your body just knows intrinsically, oh, okay, there's other, there's other oysters here trying to pearl out, so I'm going to have to put a little more sand up under my lip, they just, your nuts know that it's time to full moon. You can't be showing up with no crescent. On Halloween, you can't be showing up with no crescent. And on Halloween, you got to show up with that full moon. And you got to fire off decent sperm count, and that's what's happening. So thank you. That's interesting. I didn't know about that at all. But that makes sense, And that's what I'm saying, man. It's all the fucking people are fucking out there. People have this thing inside of them that wants to dive out of their body. Everybody got that Greg Louganis just hiding at the base of their wieners, trying to dive out of them. And that's a little bit of the devil, man. And that's a little bit of the Lord. And that's where your job is. You have to be your own referee. You know, what's going to pass through these gates right now? Am I sitting here in this next spray? Is this for me or who is this for? Is this something that's proper? You know? Or is this just something, this is just a bad habit? You know? Are you creating something beautiful? Or are you just nipping into the neck of another Viet? You got to ask yourself this stuff, man. Because everybody, it's your own journey. Everybody, it's your own journey. So let's take another call right here, man. We just got a few. We're not taking a very long episode today. I also want to tell you, you can go to theovon.com. We got some shirts on there you can grab. We'll have a new Onward shirt that will be going up this week. Won't be till later in the week. And we got a guest producer that's been helping out today, Chris. So I'm very grateful to him. I want to express gratitude to him. Thank you. I want to express gratitude to my boy Sherb, who, I don't know if I read Sherb's text the other day, man, but it was like the craziest thing that ever happened, man. You know, he didn't know he was getting paid this whole time. And here he'd been helping me out the whole time. If I didn't read those, I'll read them next week. But you can check that out. You can grab the 2 albums that are out there, 30-Pound Bag of Hamster Bones and Musket Fire. You can grab that album as well. That's early satire. As well, you can check out the special on Netflix, netflix.com. Give it a thumbs up or whatever you have to give it. Let's get that thing back into the rotation. You know, you got to support stuff that you like, and you have to do it online. And I know it sounds cheesy, but that's how guys get other opportunities. That's how they do it. I want you to support other podcasts as well. I want you to know that I appreciate you guys' support as well. A lot of great calls that came in this week. We had some calls too about the Oregon thing. You know, they had the guy that called in from Oregon, and I might address that again in the future. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. Some of you guys don't. But I just haven't gotten around to kind of putting it together right, and I'm still kind of thinking about some of my own thoughts on it. Let's hear another call right here.
Yo, what up, Theo? This is your boy Luke from California.
What's up, Luke? Onward.
I just wanted to get your opinion on some things that have been going on in my life. I've been a victim of the dark arts these last couple of years. I'm married. I have a kid, you know, and I love my wife. I love my kids, or my kid. And, but like I always really had trouble being monogamous, you know, in my relationships. And, it's not for any, you know, it's not because I don't love him or nothing. I don't know. There's just something in me, bro, like that I just can't, you know, like I always have to be trying to have sex with other girls and shit.
Man, well, I appreciate you sending this call in, man. Let's hear a little bit more, and then I'll see if I can share anything from my own life experience. Thank you for calling.
I don't know. I stopped beating myself up about it. You know, and I tried looking into like the biology of like fucking, you know, like human biology and shit, and you know, other animals, and see if this shit's natural or what. Like, are we supposed to be monogamous as human beings? Am I going against my instincts and shit? You know, I don't know, but just wanted to get your opinion on it.
Well, I appreciate you calling, man. I can certainly relate. You know, I'm just hoping these cameras aren't running out of video in here, but I can certainly relate. I can certainly relate to that. You know, having I don't have a wife and a child. You know, so that's intense because then you're really at that point you're locking in. You know, but I know that struggle of how I've been in significant relationships before and not been able to be committed at all, you know, and I don't even know why. You know, I loved, I loved the woman that I was with, but there was just something wrong with me where nothing was enough. That's what I know now, is that nothing was enough, and that women, or the affection of women, was this weird addiction that I just had to have. You know, and it sounds like you said communicating with other women. You said, you know, having you know, sexual experiences with other women, that sort of thing. But, you know, you did say communicating. Let me go back and listen one more time right here.
But like I always really had trouble being monogamous, you know, in my relationships. And it's not for any, you know, it's not because I don't love him or nothing. I don't know. There's just something in me, bro, like that I just can't, you know, like I always have to be trying to have sex with other girls and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, you always have to be. And that, you know what it sounds like, man? It sounds like, because you could change sex with women with anything. You know, always have to be drinking. You know, always have to be thinking negatively about myself. You know, I always have to be feeling like I'm less than. You could change it with anything. You could replace it with anything. And at some points, I think that it's an addictive behavior. You know, sometimes we can have these isms inside of us, these behaviors inside of us that just come out. You know, and for me, mine would be, you know, drug use or flirting with other women. I just told you that I've been through, you know, similar experiences with that for sure. And it's just a, you know, you say you don't even want to do it, but you just can't even help it. And at that point, that's when, for myself, I notice, well, this is a sickness that I have. This is an affliction. This isn't always a choice that I'm making. It's like something that I can't control. And when you can't control it, when you don't want to be doing something and you are still doing it, for me, that's when I notice that it's something that's out of my control. It's something that I need help with. And how you can get help with it, you know, from experiences of my own, you can go to SAA meetings. That's just Sex Addicts Anonymous. SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. You can just go to AA meetings. Because in the end, it's not even about, you know, your alcohol, your drug could be the need to get attention, intimate, and just even verbal from other women. Because that's a sickness, man. That's a sickness. You know, it's good. It's fine if you're not, of course, look, if you're not in a relationship, it's fine. You're out there living, you out there sowing seeds, you know. You out there John Deering, you know, digging holes in that dirt, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, hoping something sprouts out. That's natural. You know, you laying soy, you laying cotton, you laying Milo. You got that corn, you got them beets. You're putting it all in the ground. But if you have a family like you're saying, then something's heavier. And for me, it's just that it goes back to, for me, that type of behavior goes back to, I believe anyway, some emptiness that I felt, just that women rejected me or didn't want me. And it could go back to when I was very young, something that happened that I don't even remember. You know, it could go back to just something that could have been happening, you know, in junior high when I was really young, elementary school and junior high. You know, I was not attractive to women. You know, my friends always got the girls or had interest from the girls. I was always the dude like carrying the love letter from the girl, like to my buddy, you know. And, you know, sometimes that stuff just does something to our insides where we can't fix it by ourselves. So you're not alone, man. You know, you're not alone. And if you can't beat it yourself, then that's when maybe it's not a bad idea to see if there's other ways to try and fix it. You know, because in the end, though, you're going to have to make some decisions and just say, I can't do this type of behavior, you know. That doesn't mean you can't still flirt. You know, it doesn't mean you can't still be a man in ways. But when it comes to that line where you're feeling demoralized after because you're hooking up or you're doing this or that, that's the line where you have to try and shut it down. You know, and look, I've done some wild behaviors, man. You know, I've definitely done some things that I'm not proud of. I'll actually put a call on next week. We had a caller that called in, taking me to task on a behavior of mine, and I'll put that up next week. I'm looking forward to just sharing a little bit of that with you guys and trying to walk through that a little bit. I meant to do it this week, but we're getting late in the episode. But thanks for calling, man. Good luck. At least you're not being hard on yourself about it, but not being hard on yourself, that's one thing. But not taking action to repair it, the problem might not go away. And it doesn't sound like it is. So, I don't want to tell you what to do, but, if I have a problem and it doesn't go away, then I have to do something to help it remedy. For me, what I do is I go to a therapist on Monday, and I go to meetings, and those things help me. Good luck to you, man. Love you. All right, let's take one more call here.
Yo, what's up, Theo? I was just listening to your most recent podcast. You were talking about that dude who, is pornography cheating, and he wanted to get, some other guy to come drill his wife and all that. As far as pornography being cheating and all, I don't really think so. But as far as pornography as like a dark art, I really think there's something there, especially with how easy it is to watch. Now, I'm really talking about like with young kids, like with young men.
Oh, 100%, Cat Daddy. 100%. That pornography is easy. Think about it. You could be looking for a box of cereal, and next thing you know, you watching gangbangs. Never has there been something as insanely accessible as pornography. It's crazy. It's crazy how accessible it is. No wonder there aren't any more 12-year-old kids playing in the front yard anymore. They are jerking off everywhere. There's no way. If I were 12, dude, I remember being 12 years old or 11, going to the library, and they had this author or something, Peter Paul Rubens, I think was his name. He was a paint artist. He was an artist. And he had, I just read his name off the internet. And that's where I found his name on the internet. So, I sound weird, I'm going to tell you that out the gate. I sound like I have just kind of a juxtaposition going on with inside of myself. And because I am currently under some general anesthesia. And general anesthesia also, anesthesia, name of a black girl that I went to school with growing up. Beautiful young lady, Anesthesia Crandall. But general anesthesia, she did not enlist in the military. General anesthesia is a drug. And it's a drug they give you when you go in for a type of a surgery or outpatient type of a surgery or procedure. And so that's what happened to me. I got procedurized. I had to go in and get a procedure. Here's what my problem is. I can't smell that good. You would think I got that snout, I got that killer snout. I got that face piece. And you would think that I would be able to smell. That I'd be able to get a hit off of something from, at least 11 feet away. I could smell the berry under a pie crust, and I could call that thing out. That's black. That's poison. That's raz. But the truth is, I can't smell that good. And one of the problems was I couldn't breathe that good at night. I would lay down at night, and I would not be able to breathe. So in all my dreams, I'm not breathing well. Which isn't fun, because then in your dreams, if you want to have a dream, I would find myself in my dreams going and getting oxygen tanks and stuff like that, So then all my dreams, I'm carrying like a heavy oxygen thing on my back that a normal person would do if they were swimming in the ocean or going underwater, looking for shellfish or looking for, treasure. Buried, not buried, but sunken treasure. So I had to go in and get a procedure where they go in and they have these things in your inside, like the back of your nose, where it hooks into your skeleton, I think. This is definitely not technical information I'm sharing with you. Where they gotta G up your turbinates. You got turbinates inside of your face. If you ever wonder, am I a superhero? Could I be a superhero? Well, I'm telling you right now that legally, by the laws of Mother Nature and the Lord, you have turbinates in your face. And turbinates are the little parts that, that like the canals where the air goes through and it's going back into your brain. So you could get that hit off the world, you know? Like you might inhale and you might get 90% air into your face. I inhale, I was running about 25%. So they had to go in there and they put you to sleep and they get inside of your dome and they G you out. You know, and it's pretty baffling. They'll kind of shave down some areas or G up some other areas. You know, and I know that's not technical terminology, but that's what they did to me. So I didn't have to have any, you know, my nose is now stopped up with, you know, pieces of the inside of my nose and of blood, I guess honestly of blood and maybe plasma. I don't know. So I'm sorry that that's how I sound today, but that's how I sound. And there's not anything else that I can do about it. I'm still under some, you know, that general anesthesia, and I'm trying to feel better. I feel a little bit high, you know, and they hit daddy with them perks, boy. They hit daddy with that 30-pack of Percocets. And so that was a little wild. You know, I took half of one yesterday because I got the procedure yesterday morning. And then I'm going to just give the rest over to, I don't know what I do with them. If I'm not taking them, I mean, I guess I don't want to sell them, I don't think, on the street, you know, because I'm not trying to be like that and keep drugs out there. But maybe if I see somebody in pain, you know what I'm saying, I'll drop one in their mouth, you know, hit them with that Christmas spirit. Hit them with that little, hit them with that Grinch's Tylenol, you know, that Percocet. Oh, man, my nose is backfiring right now, dude. It is nar. But I appreciate you guys joining me, and happy Thursday, December 14th. And thank you guys for being a part of this past weekend. This is, I believe, the 53rd episode. So that gets us through an entire year of episodes. And it's been quite a journey and quite a ride. And I'm feeling better. A lot of people chimed in about, you know, I wasn't feeling very good last week. And I am feeling better. You know, I'm feeling a little subdued by this, you know, them doctors getting into my snout and, you know, cavernating into my face. But I'm going to be okay. I'm going to rebound from this. In a couple days, I'll be smelling again. But I'll say this: it's not fun to eat when you can't smell. Everything you put in your mouth is just a shape, or it's like maybe warm or cold, or just a shape. You know, everything there's no value to any of it. You know, it doesn't have any taste. And I always thought being blind would be really tough, you know. And I have a friend that's blind, and he said that it's not that bad in there. And he's honestly honest. He's really honest dude. And I'm not saying a lot of blind people aren't honest, but there's this whole rap about blind people that it's horrible, you know, that it's miserable in there, it's dark, and then it's, you know, people scary. There's, you know, the winds are always howling and shit in there. But my friend said not bad, not that bad. He's kind of a little bit lazy, I think, but I mean, he's blind. So it's, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really. But he said it's not that bad. But I always thought that being blind would be the toughest thing to deal with. But man, being tongue blind and being and nose blind, which is when you can't smell or taste, it's heavy. It's heavy because everything you put in your mouth, it could be anything. You know, it has no. You know, yesterday I ate 2 packs of Kool-Aid powder. You know, I ate 2 direct packs of Kool-Aid powder. And I took them straight to the dome because I'm thinking if I can't taste, then this is a time when I can do things that normally I wouldn't be able to do because the taste would revolt me. You know, so I hit that Kool-Aid powder and then hit another flavor. Couldn't tell the difference between either one of them. You know, you could take a whole pack of Kool-Aid powder to the dome. So pretty, I guess, interesting. I don't know. I'll be honest with you, man. I'm wavering in and out with this general anesthesia. And shout out to Anesthesia Crandall back there. Anesthesia. But I went in there, so I went into UCLA Medical, and the lady said, "Are you allergic to anything?" And I said, "Cocaine, baby cat." You know? I said, just tell that doctor not to prescribe any grams for me. Because Daddy will be, I'll be back, you know. I'll be filling that script. I'll turn an 8-ball into a 16-ball like that. But happy December. We started off with a little bit of with Christmas music there. And I got to tell you guys, Tiny Sandhu is coming back at us next week. I hit him up. I emailed him. I said, Tiny, we need something. You know, we got the holidays coming up. And he sent me a riff. It's him playing Jingle Bells on his electric guitar, and it's fire. And I'm going to bring that to you guys next week. As well, I wanted to play a call that came in from a caller about, excuse me, man. A call that came in from a caller about, you know, an issue that I had with a caller's girlfriend on the road a while back. You know, beginning of the year. And I wanted to play that, but I'm just in such a weird headspace today that I'm going to play it on Monday when I'm a little bit more, you know, fully released from whatever's going on in my face and skull. Because my skull don't feel right. My skull feels left, if you know what I'm saying. But what else? We got the holidays coming up. We got Tiny Sandhu hit us with that hitter. It's coming in. Want to thank Gray Block Pizza, because you know they always on board with them pies. Get that Italian pie. Ooh, what's in your mouth? Ooh, that Gray Block. Put it in your mouth. Get that it up. So that's something, man. That's over there in Los Angeles. And I wanted to talk about some of these Christmases. You know, they got different Christmases around the world. In Australia, they got a dude named Krampus. And this fella named Krampus, he beats naughty children with branches. He beats naughty children with branches. And we call that, basically in America, I'm going to tell you that we call that a stepdaddy. We call that a stepdaddy. And everybody got that stepdaddy. That's kind of crazy. First time you see that dude, you're like, man, he got some wild pants. His pants look weird. You know, the hair on it, you notice. That's when you first notice hair on a man's legs when you see a stepdaddy. He wearing shorts to church. Man, that's a sin. Dude, if I see somebody with shorts on in church, boy, you might as well pull their card right there and check the hell box. I can't imagine you going to heaven if you got wearing shorts to church. That's a great, I mean, that's hellbound behavior, I feel like. Just my thoughts. But that's something that happened in Australia. They beat naughty children with branches. They get that Adrian Peterson on them. Boy, that 1,000-yard rusher. And that's Krampus. But I like that at least, because in America, all you have is Santa. You know? It's not like if you either get Santa or you get Santeria. You know, where either Santa shows up or, you know, this satanic cult shows up, you know, and rearranges your freaking fingers. You know, you wake up in the morning and your thumb is in the middle on your hand, you know, and you can't tell if you're hitching a ride or flipping people off. You know, I just wish there was like a double, you know, another sword, because it's just Santa's going to come. Santa's not coming. That's what they say to children. Santa's not coming. Oh, really? He came last year. And I was an asshole last year. So, I don't know. Man. A lot going on in my skull right now. In Catalonia, and that is, I'm going to go with Italian. And I would wager half of my money on that, Alex. I'm going to go with Italian. In Catalonia nativity scenes, they have something called the Caganer, Caganer, and it's a defecating man. It's that deuce man. Deuce, boy. You got that dude getting shitty in the nativity, you know? And that's wild. That really adds an extra edge to the whole story. You know, you got the three wise men, and you got that mad shitter in the corner. That dude that's been doing cocaine or had too much coffee at the bus stop. You know, he's over there shitting in the corner of the scenario. That's pretty fucking gangster when you think about it. I got to say shout out to Catalonia, man, for doing that. Because that's wild. Nativity scenes would be really spiced up if shit was, you know, You know, like say you throw a dude into one of them that had a grill, some dude that was working a big grill. Suddenly the sheep and the donkey, they got a wild look in their eyes because they're either, you know, they're trying to be down with the Savior, but he's a newborn, you know, and they don't know if they're making friends with him quick enough before the dude running that grill is going to spark them up and serve up some local meats there. So that's really something to be, you know, something that could happen. That's really something that could happen. Oh, I literally cannot breathe out of my nose at all. So y'all just bear with me, man. I appreciate you guys for being here today. Where else? Whoa, listen to that, man. Every time I swallow, listen to this. Every time I swallow, my nose makes like a funny noise. Hold on. Oh. And in that time, it didn't do it. In Germany, they hide a pickle in the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. The first child to find it, gets a small gift. And in Germany, and that's wild. That's wild to think a bunch of Germans hunting pickles. You know, I don't know if that seems really German. It seemed it seemed a little bit homoerotic. You know, you hiding a couple cucumbers. You know, you hiding a couple cumbers up in a fern at your house. That seemed a little bit homoerotic to me. But hey, whatever. You know, I think it's kind of fun. Maybe you hide you know, we used to put a chocolate under each other's pillow. But then people forget about it. And then you just get chocolate all in your bed. You know? You get chocolate all in your arms and shit while you sleep. And you're trying to sleep and you got chocolate and you got nougat and shit. And that used to be something wild that would happen around us sometimes. What else? In the Czech Republic, unmarried women stand by the door and throw a shoe over their shoulder. If the toe is pointing towards the door when it lands, they will get married within the next year. And I'm guessing that if the toe isn't pointing towards the door, they just throw it again. Probably because who the fuck wants to be lonely? Especially out there in the Czech Republic. Because it's probably really cold and you don't want to be lonely, man. Because sex will keep you warm, but playing with yourself just keep you, you know, cold and you feel a little bit of self-appreciation, but you still feel cold. You do a little bit of sex, you feel warmed up. But if you're just doing self-appreciation or self-touch, you ain't feeling anything spectacular. You still feel kind of cold-legged after you done sprayed out. And I think that's for either gender. That's for either gender right there. And I went and got this procedure, and I told the man straight up. Well, before they sent me into the back, I told the man, I said, you know, I don't want you, don't cut my legs off. The man on there's on the computer, and he's typing shit in. I said, just don't click on the legs button, because I'm walking out of here. Because that happens. You realize that happens? People walk it. Imagine you only have one leg. You go to the hospital. You're supposed to do something. Maybe get an eye taken out or something. Or, get your ear, get one of your ears sewed together or something or whatever. And then next thing you know, they take your leg on accident. Now you can't even fucking hop. You were already down to just being somebody that hops. And now some idiot who hit the wrong button in there by the surgery center, now you hopless. Now if you want to, you can't even stand up. The best you could do is just, sit there on your thigh, chunks and tell somebody you're standing up. That's crazy, isn't it? That you can't even stand up. The best you could do is just keep yelling, I'm standing up, even though you look the same as you always do because you don't have any legs. So you got to be careful when you go into these centers. I tell them straight up, I want to leave here with my legs. Because anything, man, those motherfuckers, they in there all night, some of them. They got the dude in there. The guy that was putting me under anesthesia with this gentleman, I think was, honestly, no disrespect at all, but I think the gentleman might have been homoerotic. So I don't know how long this dude's put me down for. I don't know if he got a trunk outside and he's trying to be wild. Because I got a nice ass, man, I'll be honest. I got a nice ass. And I just get worried, They take your leg, they take an eye. Easily, you know how easy an eye could come out of your head? Easily. Next thing you know, you got a special, you trying to have a fucking fancy patch or something. You trying to get that patch with the flames on it for summertime or something, trying to be cool at the beach, you know. You trying to get that Christmas patch where it's like, you know, a little bit of glitter or dust on the outside of it. I mean, yeah, come on, man. Maybe you start a store online, Pat's Patches, and you slanging patches. I mean, it's just, you got to be careful. You got to be careful out there, man. When you go into these surgery centers, you don't know. You don't know what they're going to do to you. And that's why when I go in, I tell them straight up, I want to walk out here with my legs. I'm here because my snout needs to get rocked out a little bit. So check my levels and get in there. Because I'm ready to change a little, but I'm not ready to change a lot. You know what I'm saying? I don't want somebody pushing me out of here in a baby carriage because y'all taking my legs and arms because y'all out here fucking around. Because, dude, I read an article somewhere. They said 15% of America's on drugs. Now, is that a realistic stat? Probably not, dude. But it counts, I think. You know? I guess. Does it? I don't know. Roy Moore almost got elected. You saw that? Roy Moore. And that's the name. Nobody ever knew about Roy Moore. You know, he's been in and out of term over there in Alabama for a while in the Senate. And then suddenly, you know, it's every political race is now a big deal, you know, because there's just two sides in America. And Roy Moore's case was interesting because he's an alleged pedophile. You know, he that toucher. He got that long reach. You got to have long arms to touch a child. That's what my dad used to tell me. He said, look, you got to have long arms to touch a child. And I never been in any of that. Dude, when I see a kid, all I think about is, man, this fucking kid is probably going to bother me. And I'm grateful that's the only thing I think. But the thing about Roy Moore was it was alleged that he was, you know, trying to date younger women. It was alleged. There were stories from women. There were accusations for sure. You know, there was a video also from a child of one of the women saying that the woman was not a truthful woman. There was a lot of stuff out there, but you know, he wasn't convicted of anything. He was just accused. And I'm not supporting Roy Moore, but I am saying that it's an interesting time where, you know, where all the accusations, you could just be accused of something, and that's scary. That's scary. Somebody says somebody says you're petting their dog or something, or hugging their kid too long at a fiesta or something. Next thing you know, you're you know, that's it. That's it. You know, that kind of stuff, I mean, I can't even imagine. Can you imagine? Say you never did anything like that, and somebody said that. Put it out on Facebook. You know, and I use Facebook because that's where your neighbors see it. Man, how I cannot even fathom what that would be like. You know? I mean, it's scary. Because then, man, a lot of people just connect the dots, especially in small towns. People just you know, Facebook is a lot of people take it all for real. So that's scary with the Roy Moore scenario. And he lost. He lost to a man, Doug Jones. And I think that I always think that change benefits in the end. You know, I'm not sure how long Roy Moore had been in term, but it seemed like he'd been in there a while. And I think once you set in somewhere too long, you have to get out of the seat. You know, it needs to be a little bit more like musical chairs. Because these people getting awful comfortable, you know, living off the hog. You know, cutting bacon into their mouth every time they want, but then everybody else hungry. And they sitting there to slice it right off that pig's neck, right into their jaw. But yeah, so that's it, man. Roy Moore's out. And that's that's a change. And I think that change is always good. But I think it's a scary time with these accusations. You know, I feel like every guy's just waiting for that wheel to stop on them. You know, who's next? When does it happen to me? You know, is Hester Prynne out there? If somebody wants your job, can they just say something? Next thing you know, how are you going to defend, you know? It's the court of public opinion now. I mean, we could shut down the judicial system. I mean, it doesn't even matter. I mean, Roy Moore will probably never even go to trial for any of those things, you know? And I'm not saying if he did those things, yeah. That's deviant behavior. You know, that's behavior that the man's got to be atoned for sure. You know, the man's got to be wrapped up for. It's not right. It's not right. It's fucked up. You know, but it's like, can you just say anything about anyone? He could be 100% guilty. I'm just using him as an example. But can you just say anything about anyone? And what? No repercussions? I mean, slander, it's just everything's slander now. Just something else going on, man. Something else going on. How many times have you gone to a movie and it's gutter? You know? Especially when it's one of a remake or one of your favorite franchises. You loved it as a kid. You take all that nostalgia in there with you and you get there and it's straight G to the ata. Nothing. No hitter. Ninja Turtles. Baywatch. Saving Private Ryan Part 2. Did you even know they had that? They don't. But you could imagine it, couldn't you? Because they don't care. As long as they can just make a buck, even if it's just a little buck, that's what they care about. But that's going to change now with a new program called Liveetree. Liveetree is changing the entertainment industry by creating a new platform called Adept. Adept is where the public will be able to fund what they want to watch, own what they help produce, decide who's in it, and what goes on through the process of content creation, funding, and distribution. So you can check it out at liveetree.com. I want to get to a couple of calls, man, that came in about some Christmas traditions. Let's get into a couple of them. Here we go.
It's Andrew calling from the east coast of Canada. Just want to call about Christmas traditions. My wife and where her family's from. They're from a province called Newfoundland up here in Canada.
Newfoundland, yeah, man, that's heavy. That's white country. And you got whites out there just painting each other white. Just people eating flour. And people just using chalk as lipstick and just, that's white. That's just white people out there just hunting ghosts and doing hella white stuff, eating clams and putting on aprons, downloading shit, doing the most white shit you could do. That's white country. Thank you for calling, Andrew. Onward.
And they celebrate this Irish tradition around Christmas, and it's called mummering. And you dress up, and, put rubber boots on, put a bag over your head, wear like your host coat or different types of things like that. So, and then you go around the neighborhood, and everybody has their door unlocked. You go into people's kitchens, and you got a drink. You have your rum. You might play a song on the guitar, and then people have to try to guess who you are from that type of stuff, and they can't see it. But the costumes get really creative. You can check it out online.
Mummering, huh? So you dress up, you put a bag over your head, you put on boots, you go around to the neighbor's house, you knock on the door, you go inside, somebody plays a song, and they try to guess who you are. Man, sounds like one of the scenes from a Saw movie. Sound like somebody about to get murked at the end of that, dude. Sound like that's a good way to lose a cousin. You showing up with a bag over your head into a stranger's house? Try that in Florida, dude. You try that in Florida, Big Daddy. You bring a van full of Newfies, and those are people from Newfoundland down to Florida, and see how that goes off when you show up bag-headed into people's homes. You're singing and dancing. Dude, this ain't America's Got Talent, dude. This is Florida. This is St. Petersburg got coffins, This is Fort Lauderdale got grave plots. Because they'll start gunning. They'll shoot you down in Florida for doing that kind of stuff. But it sounds like fun up there. I mean, and that sounds like definite alcoholism, things you do in the rain when you're doing alcohol. But that is a Christmas tradition up there in Newfoundland. Andrew, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's take another call here from Blake about Christmas down in Dallas.
Yvonne, it's Blake from Dallas. Yeah, I just wanted to share a Christmas story with you. On Christmas Eve, when I was about 5 years old,
And I was 5 years old once as well. And I'm trying to think what I remember about it one time was the first time I ever vomited. I was 5. and I had me a couple peanut butter and jellies on Raisin Bran bread, because my mother loved Raisin Bran and she used to let us have it. Man, I had 2 of them, I think, or 1.5. And 1.5 little sandwiches, that's the most you can fit in a 5-year-old, is 1.5 sandwiches. If you feed 2 sandwiches to a 5-year-old, dude, you might be on that Roy Moore dinner plan, you know? So the most you could do, really, 1.5 sandwiches to a 5-year-old. And I remember having 1.5 and being, just excited. I was so fat laying in bed, I couldn't even put my arms by my side. I had to take my underpants off. That's how full of food I was. And I was feeling joyous. And something got me. I think it might have had a bad raisin in the bread or something. Something got up into one of my bile ducts or something. Or got lodged in my, somewhere in my belly and started to sour. And next thing you know, I woke up, just sat straight up. And I didn't know what was happening. I'd never vomited before, knowingly. And then I remember standing on my bed. I didn't know what to do, right? So I stood up on my bed because I felt like something was about to happen. I felt like a dragon was about to come into the universe, and I was going to be his front door. I was going to be his doorway. So I just stood there waiting for a dragon. And at first I thought something was going to come out of my butt, out of my ass. Or I guess that when you're a child, it's not really an ass, really out of my small butt. I thought something was going to come out of my small butt. And instead, it just flew, just projectile vomited, out of my face and splattered off the wall. And I remember crying and telling my mother that food was flying out of me, because I thought this food had wings or something on it. And something crazy had happened in that, I don't know, maybe the devil or God didn't want me having that food, and they were, pulling it out of my system with invisible hands. That was something that I thought. All right, let's hear more. Thank you for calling, Blake.
We were over at my grandmother's sister's house, and she called all the children into a back room, and she started telling us this, she was basically talking crap about my grandfather, and she was saying if my grandfather showed his face around her house that she would shoot him. And then she reached into her purse and pulled out a pistol.
Ooh, Grandma had that hit on her, huh? She had that piece. Grandma got that bullet maker. Damn, that's wild. That's usually more something like you would hear about in Alabama over there up in even in North Carolina or West Virginia. But I'm surprised to hear this behavior down in Texas. That Grandma got that piece on her. Let's hear more.
And showed us the pistol. And at that point, some parent, I guess, overheard what was going on or walked into the room and, got all the kids out of there. But that was the Christmas that crazy Aunt Janet snapped. Just had to share. Theo Vaughn.
Huh. So I couldn't tell them if that was your grandmother or aunt, but somebody got that piece on them. And look, dude, everybody, people don't want to have guns around and stuff like that. I get it. No guns around schools. I get it. No guns in busy areas. I get it. But let's don't pretend that, that when we were young, if you were in the, or if you're in the South, that there ain't guns close to the table. They have guns. People have guns. I read somewhere that there's like 500 million guns. That's a lot of guns. I probably have a gun somewhere right around me right now and don't even know it. A lot of these guns are in between homes. So there's a lot of guns out there. But I think that's pretty brave of a grandmother to pull a piece out of her purse, I had an ex-girlfriend that always had a piece on her. What else, dude? One of my thicker brother-in-laws showed up one time. I'm at the computer at midnight. I'm on the computer. And he popped around the edge of this little door. This computer, like little kiosk, had 2 doors on it. And he popped around the edge of it. He got his underpants on. And he really a thicker little kind of a gentleman, kind of a happy gentleman, former male cheerleader. And he said, guess how many guns I have on me? And first of all, dude, it's midnight. 2, we don't super know each other that great. 3, you only have underpants on. 4, I don't think I've ever even seen you without your shirt on. So to come full throttle in here, no shirt, no pants, no socks. No socks. Now what is that? No socks, bro? I can understand if you show up, we don't know each other that much. you got on underpants and socks, but underpants, no socks? Wow. Dude, I feel like this dude, sound like his soul is on a scavenger hunt for something. Maybe for some cock or something wild at night. Maybe for a couple of, trying to score some uppers or something. And I'm just on the internet. I'm on Facebook. And he popped around the edge of the little computer where the computer was in this little kind of, wooden little, it's not an armoire, but like a little desk kind of thing with doors on it. He's like, guess how many guns I have on me? Only has underpants on. So I said, I don't know. Because hopefully none. Hopefully none. You have tighty whities on and a couple of rough Bama tattoos. And he goes, 2, dude. That's what he said, 2. And then I didn't notice down by his calf, he had on one of those calf holsters, right? This dude has no shoes, no socks, no pants, calf holstered gun right there. And then he turned around and he had a piece in he had like a Beretta in his tighty whities along his back. And I'm like, Jesus, man. That'll make you find the Lord fast. He'd been sleeping on the couch. I don't even know he's over there sleeping. Had 2 guns on him. He said, I got 2. He goes, you never know who might come in here. I said, I'm the only other person in here. So if anybody's going to get shot, it's going to be me, man. What the fuck, bro? Tone it down. Take some Benadryl and fucking shut it down, guy. So, but I feel you, Blake. Family gets guns and things get wild. Family gets guns and things get wild. We had some female callers. Let's hit them up. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. This is Hannah. I'm from the University of North Texas down here in Denton, Texas. And I'm calling in...
Yep, University of North Texas. The Greenies, I think they're called. The Greenies. Thank you for calling, Hannah. You got a beautiful voice. Onward.
Response to the most recent podcast in which you asked the female viewers how they felt about the podcast. And personally, I love your podcast. I love it for the reason that I actually get to have some insight into workings of the male mind. That's something I did not grow up with.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Well, look, I'm just trying to figure out how the male mind works. So I appreciate you even for, sticking around and being involved in this experimentation. Onward.
No brothers, no male cousins. And my father, he, I guess, wasn't very comfortable kind of talking to me about male nature or just the way men are in general.
Yeah, I can imagine your father might not have been, because men don't know how. Sometimes we don't know how we are. We're still learning as we go, and the problem is by the time we think we get an inkling, the time is up. Usually, it's hard for a man sometimes to get a perspective of himself because I think he's too busy being a man. There's so much happening sometimes when you're a man that it's hard to step back and get a look at everything that's going on. It's hard to watch the movie when you're in it. It's hard to watch the movie when you're in it. And it's, somebody's always yelling action. So it's hard to know sometimes what the script says there. But let's hear some more, Hannah.
So this podcast has been a very valuable resource to me. Really the only way that I actually get to, look into the mind of men besides, dating them.
Yeah, and dating a man can be dangerous because when you're dating a man, they're trying to get you to touch their wiener. That's usually part of the dating game, or sometimes they'll, get you to play games with them first, Scrabble, ride around in a truck, get a malt, get a side item or get a couple appetizers. But eventually, men want you to touch their crotch and probably to touch your crotch. And that's okay. That's part of what life is, That's part of how people get to touch each other. They usually start with snacks. But yeah, I'm glad you're able to come here, Hannah. We're happy that you're here, and thank you for being a part of the podcast and a part of the environment over here. We got another beautiful call that came in right here. Let's take another. This isn't Hannah, but this is close.
Hey, Theo. This is Hannah calling again from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. Thank you for calling. I've never been to Saudi Arabia before. I've been to Kuwait, and I've been to Iraq. Thank you for calling, Hannah.
I was born and raised in Cleveland, but I'm living in the Middle East now.
Wow. So you were really in the Middle East of two different continents, You really... Cleveganistan. Some people call it Cleveganistan. Onward. Thank you for calling. Happy holidays.
I thought as a Muslim I might call in and just say, we don't celebrate Christmas, but fun fact, we do love Jesus in Islam. And, we celebrate him for being one of the most beloved prophets in all of time. And we believe that Jesus said in the Quran, and peace be upon me, the day I was born, the day I die, and the day I shall be raised alive.
Oh wow, well, that's beautiful. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And she's saying that in her Muslimity, if that can be a word, that that they don't celebrate Christmas, but that they do see Jesus as an amazing prophet. Let's hear more. Onward.
That's in Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse 33, if anybody wants to Google that, if they don't believe me. We are sharing the love all over the world for you. Love what you're doing, love your spirit. And thanks for creating that content that can touch us all over the world. Hope you have a great holiday and a great New Year.
Oh, that's very sweet of you, Hannah. I appreciate that. And the same to you guys. I probably should have looked up and seen how to express like a Happy New Year in Muslim or but I just haven't. I didn't, but that's something I'll make sure to check out so I can get a little bit more information into my brain. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this past weekend. Sorry guys, I'm a little out of it. I mean, my brain is just slow. It's hard for me to, my nose just keeps making noises like it's like it's doing sign language with sounds. Like every couple seconds it'll just kind of bubble up, or it's like one of those, they used to have this show called The Snorks, where it was like this family of creatures that were underwater and they always had these bubbles coming out of their snouts. And that's what I feel like right now. I got the bubble guts, but it's up in my snout, and my snout's making noises like it's a little bit of Morse code, but it's not really saying anything. But thank you for calling in and for sharing Christmas wishes with us, even though Christmas isn't something that you celebrate. I think that that's a really beautiful thing to do, to cross, to sort of cross religious beliefs to express joy for somebody else and their holiday under their religion. So thank you. That's very sweet of you. We might have to shut it down soon, guys, because I'm running out of speed. We'll get back to a regular episode on Monday. I got one more call here, though, and this is one that I wanted to get some callers in for. Let's see what we can do right here to help this young lady out.
Hey, Theo. It's Abby in Tennessee. I just listened to this past weekend today, and I heard at the end that you don't get a lot of female callers, so I thought I would just do the females a solid and call. My question and my issue right now is that I feel like I put myself in the friend zone because I'm kind of laid back and would rather just like hang out with the guys instead of the girls and like listen to gossip and fashion and shoes. Like I don't give a...
Well, look, I mean, thank you for calling. Sometimes I want to be right there with you. Sometimes I want to just enjoy myself and relax and talk about shiffer robes and talk about, different colors of paint. Sometimes I don't want to always be sitting around with the fellas and be arm wrestling, and calling each other gays and stuff. Sometimes I want to be doing real stuff, exciting things, like learning how to do art or do claymation or, do archery or wrestle. Sometimes I want to do things that, even ladies do, like try on different hats or, what else? Dance. I mean, I'm fucking honestly, dude, I could have been a fucking good dancer. I got strong, straight legs. Let's hear more.
Give a crap. I'd rather just listen to a good fart joke or something, like I guess need some advice or your perspective on what I need to do to not be immediately put in the friend zone because I'm too cool or just then a guy's friend into the female psyche. So, I mean, in your special, you say something about like, put down the dumbbell and pick up some flowers and look lost. Like, I don't lift, but I don't want to pick up flowers and look lost just so some guy sweeps me off my feet. Like, that's not me. I'm just trying to be myself, but then I feel like I scare a bunch of guys away because I'm just, fun to hang out with. But anyway, I enjoy the podcast. Appreciate you, man. Be good to yourself because you definitely deserve it. Hey.
Oh, that's sweet of you. I appreciate you calling in there, Abby. And that's, it's a good question. Abby's in the friend zone. And you don't want to have to, I see you don't want to have to wear, put honey on your neck and, tape pictures of your crotch or anything to your shirt or, stuff like that to get men to realize you want to be more than friends. You don't want to have to go to those lengths. You want to just be able to be you, but not have guys immediately put you into the friend zone. Well, for me, and I'm gonna let's do this for Monday. Let's take some calls in on that. Like, if a woman's in the friend zone, how can as dudes, like, what can we do or what can we see so that we don't think she stays there? Like, if this were your sister asking you guys, like, how do I get out of this friend zone? How do I not be in it? What advice would you give her? What thoughts would you give her? Suggestions? You can hit the hotline with those, 985-664-9503. And I apologize again for this voice you guys have been having to listen to this whole time. Like, my nose, I can't breathe through it. So I feel like I've been underwater this whole time. I can't really hear that good. And this has been definitely interesting. I feel like I'm missing a sense, But let's see what we got for Abby, because she don't want to be out there. She don't want to be out there being, having to be like a, showing leg everywhere and that sort of thing to get a man. She don't want to have to be tying jerky around her thighs or anything to let these men know that she wants to, might have more out there instead of just friendship. And I think for me, friendship's a great place to start. Sometimes if you're thinking really long term, it can be even more important than anything else, because you never, you might get tired of fucking your friend, but you're still going to want to be friends with them. Whereas if it's just somebody that's just sex is the only interest, once you get tired of fucking and you don't have the friendship level, then there's nothing. So friendship is important. So I don't think you want to get fully out of the friend zone. But I notice even for me, the simple things. When a lady wears, if she got a tat, if she shows off some of that tat, that ink work. If a lady got, if she has if she could cook and she brings like a nice meal. I know these things might sound old fashioned, that's fine. But I'm just telling you things. Lipstick, something even as simple as lipstick. If a girl brings a friend of hers around and I can see them like, just joking and interacting with each other, that always, that immediately changes kind of how I look at her as opposed to if just her by herself is always around, so that kind of adjusts things a little. What else to get a girl out of the friend zone? Don't be wearing like, James Harden jerseys and stuff like that. I don't think that's probably the most solid way to go. It doesn't sound like for you. So I think some attire, some stockings. I like a little bit of stocking. You don't see a lot of stockings anymore. I like that stocking. What else? I like that little bit of hosiery. I like the girl that have them little bit of hosiery. They got them legs wrapped up, just like tall, long gifts with knees in the middle. That's what I like. So those are just some thoughts, but I want to hear what some of our constituents think here. And I want to thank you guys for listening to this past weekend. We'll be back on Monday with a regular episode. And again, I'm sorry for my voice, man. I love you guys.